Imagine for a moment a person sitting alone in a bustling cafe. The air hums with the murmur of conversations, the clink of porcelain on saucers, the gentle hiss of the espresso machine. All around, there are faces illuminated by the soft glow of screens or by the light in another's eyes. This person, perhaps it is you, holds a phone. On its screen, a curated river of images flows by. Pictures of perfect couples on sun-drenched beaches, surprise proposals under starry skies, hands intertwined across a dinner table, a world of seemingly flawless love, just a thumb swipe away. And yet, in the heart of this person, there is a profound sense of emptiness, a quiet ache of loneliness that the noise of the cafe and the digital glow cannot touch. This is the great paradox of our modern lives: to be more connected than ever, yet to feel deeply, fundamentally alone, always searching for that one person, that one perfect love that we believe will finally make us whole. This suffering, this persistent feeling of being incomplete, is not a personal failure. It is not a sign that you are unlovable or that you have done something wrong. It is, instead, a symptom of a deep misunderstanding, a story our culture has told us about love. We are taught to see love as an object, a prize to be won, a transaction to be completed. We build checklists in our minds. We swipe left and right. We negotiate terms, consciously or not. We seek a partner to fill our voids, to soothe our anxieties, to validate our existence. We believe that love is something we must get from the outside. But this very act of grasping, of needing, of attaching our entire sense of well-being to another person, is the very root of our anxiety, our jealousy, our fear of loss. In the language of the ancient ones, this is dukkha, the deep and pervasive dissatisfaction that comes from clinging to that which is impermanent. But what if there is another way? What if the story we've been told is incomplete? What if love is not a thing to be found, but a capacity to be cultivated? What if it is not a feeling you get from someone else, but a state of being that you can inhabit right here, right now? What if the profound peace you seek does not come from finally finding your other half, but from learning to rest peacefully in the boundless compassion of your own heart? This is the invitation of Zen wisdom, not as a religion to convert to, but as a practical map, a gentle guide to exploring the inner landscape of your own heart. It is a path to discovering a different kind of love, one that does not grasp, but embraces, a love that does not seek to possess, but to liberate, a love that is not conditional on being loved in return, but flows freely from a source of inner wholeness. This is a journey from the ache of emptiness to the quiet, unshakable peace of unconditional love. And it begins now. Let us begin by returning to that quiet feeling of emptiness, that subtle echo in the chambers of the heart. It is a feeling many of us know intimately. It can find us in a crowd. It can visit us in the middle of the night. We have given it many names: loneliness, longing, a desire for connection. But perhaps the most honest name for it is a hunger, an emotional hunger. It is the deep, gnawing sense that something vital is missing. And we have been taught by our entire world that the missing piece is a person. We are a lock, searching for the one true key. And so, the great search begins. We polish our surfaces. We present our best angles. We enter the marketplace of hearts, hoping to be chosen, hoping to find the one who will finally and forever satisfy this deep and persistent hunger. But in this very search, in the very definition of this hunger, lies the source of its own perpetuation. We are looking for nourishment in a place where it cannot be found. And in doing so, we often deepen the very emptiness we seek to escape. Our understanding of this nourishment is shaped by powerful and often invisible architects of illusion. From the moment we are young, we are given the blueprints for a love that does not exist in the real world. We see it in films, where a dramatic chase through an airport leads to a perfect kiss as the credits roll, implying a happily ever after that requires no further effort. We read it in stories, tales of soulmates destined for each other by the stars, a cosmic certainty that absolves us of the messy, complicated work of actual relating. And today, this illusion is amplified 1,000 times over through the stained glass windows of social media. We scroll through highlight reels, a performance of perpetual romantic bliss, the surprise vacations, the artfully arranged anniversary dinners, the poetic captions declaring a perfect, flawless love. We see the destination, but never the difficult journey. We see the posed photograph, but not the argument that happened 5 minutes before. This creates within us a dangerous form of perfectionism. We carry this perfect, airbrushed image in our minds, and we compare our messy, beautifully imperfect reality to it. When our own relationship doesn't feel like a movie, we think something is wrong. When our partner reveals their flaws, their fears, their ordinary human struggles, a seed of disappointment is planted. We start to believe that perhaps we chose the wrong person, that the real thing is still out there, that this flawed human love is not enough. This phantom of perfection haunts our connections. It prevents us from appreciating the quiet, steady, and sometimes difficult beauty of real love. It keeps us in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction, always looking over our partner's shoulder for something better, something more, something that matches the impossible fantasy we have been sold. We are trying to build a real home, using the blueprints for a castle in the clouds. The result is not a home, but a construction site of perpetual frustration. Compounding this illusion is a fundamental confusion in our chemistry. We mistake the powerful, intoxicating rush of infatuation for the steady warmth of love. When we first meet someone who captivates us, our bodies are flooded with a potent cocktail of chemicals. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter of reward and pleasure, makes us feel euphoric, energetic, focused entirely on this new person. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, creates a sense of closeness and deep attachment. Norepinephrine makes our hearts race and our palms sweat. It is a state of beautiful, exhilarating madness. It is nature's way of overcoming our natural fears and hesitations, of pushing two separate beings together, and it feels wonderful. The mistake is not in feeling this. The mistake is in believing that this state of heightened intensity is love itself. We become addicted to the rush. This frantic, obsessive, can't eat, can't sleep energy feels so alive. We think it must be the ultimate goal, but it is, by its very nature, unsustainable. No biological system can maintain that level of intensity forever. Eventually, as it must, the chemical wave recedes. The dopamine rush quiets down. The obsessive thoughts begin to fade. And it is at this precise moment that a panic often sets in. We think, the magic is gone. I've fallen out of love. And so, many of us leave. We leave the relationship to go in search of another person who can give us that initial chemical surge once more. We become thrill seekers, chasing the high of infatuation, moving from one relationship to the next, leaving a trail of confusion and heartache for ourselves and for others. We have mistaken the brilliant, explosive flash of lightning for the quiet, life-giving, and enduring light of the sun. This frantic search, fueled by impossible ideals and chemical confusion, is ultimately a misplaced one. The void we feel, the deep emotional hunger, does not truly originate from the absence of another person. It comes from a disconnection with ourselves. We are looking for a savior, not a partner. We ask another human being to carry an impossible burden, the burden of our own happiness, our own sense of worth, our own unhealed wounds. We want them to be the mirror that always tells us we are beautiful. We want them to be the fortress that protects us from our fears. We want them to be the parent who soothes our inner child. We ask them to love the parts of ourselves that we cannot bear to love. We turn a person into a project, a solution, a cure for our own inner turmoil. And when they inevitably fail, because no human can carry such a weight, we feel betrayed. We blame them for not loving us enough, for not being enough, when in truth, we were asking them to do a job that was never theirs to do. We were asking them to fill a cup that has a hole in the bottom. No matter how much love and validation they pour in, it will never be full. The ache remains. There is an old story that speaks to this. It tells of a very wealthy man who built himself the most magnificent mansion imaginable. The floors were made of polished marble. The walls were adorned with priceless art, and the vast windows looked out upon breathtaking gardens. He had everything he could possibly want, yet he was always cold. He shivered constantly, a deep, unshakable chill in his bones. He blamed the builders, saying the stone was too cold. He blamed the window makers, saying they were letting in a draft. He spent a fortune trying to seal every crack, to insulate every wall, but nothing worked. The cold remained. One day, a wise old traveler came to visit. She walked through the grand cold rooms and saw the man, wrapped in thick furs, still shivering. She didn't look at the walls or the windows. Instead, she walked to the very center of the mansion's great hall. There stood an enormous, ornate fireplace, built of the finest brick, with a generous stack of dry logs and kindling laid perfectly within it. But it was dark. It was cold. Not a single ember glowed. The wise woman turned to the man and said softly, "Sir, you have the most beautiful home I have ever seen, but you have blamed the wind and the stone for your cold, when all this time you have simply neglected to light the fire within your own hearth." That emotional hunger we feel is the shivering of a soul who has not yet learned to light its own inner fire. It is the echo of an empty hearth. We have been searching for warmth everywhere, outside of ourselves, in the fleeting heat of another's approval, in the temporary shelter of a relationship, while the source of all true and lasting warmth lies waiting, dormant, within us. To begin the journey toward a love that truly nourishes, we must first stop blaming the wind and the stone. We must turn our gaze away from the endless search for an external flame. We must be willing to look inward, at our own hearth. And to do that, we must first understand the very nature of our grasping, the subtle illusion of separation that makes us believe we are a cold and lonely house, instead of the source of the fire itself. We must learn to see not just the house, but the entire landscape of which it is a part. To begin our journey inward, let us start with an act of seeing. Not just looking, but truly seeing. If you can, hold a simple object in your hands. A cup of tea, a book, or even just a plain sheet of paper. If not, you can simply look at your own hand, resting in your lap. Look at this object, this hand, as if for the first time. We give it a name, a label. This is a cup, this is paper, this is my hand. We think we know what it is. We define it by its boundaries, by where it ends, and the rest of the world begins. This solid, separate, independent existence is the way we have been taught to see everything. including ourselves and the people we love. But the great masters of contemplation offer us a different lens, a deeper vision. They invite us to look again and to see that the lines we draw are only illusions. They teach us that to be is always to be. Let us take that simple sheet of paper. At first glance, it is just a flat, white rectangle. But if we look deeply, with a quiet and patient mind, what do we see? We know that this paper comes from a tree. So, the tree is here, in this sheet of paper. But a tree cannot grow without the sun. The sunlight, the warmth, the energy that fed the leaves through photosynthesis is captured right here. So, the sun is in the paper. A tree also cannot grow without water. The water it drew up through its roots came from the rain, and the rain came from the clouds. So, without the cloud, there can be no paper. The cloud, seemingly so distant and separate, is intimately present in the fiber of this page. And what of the earth, the soil that held the tree's roots, the minerals that nourished it? They are here too. The earth is in the paper, and the web of connection expands. A lumberjack had to cut down the tree. His strength, his breath, his daily work are part of this paper's story. But the lumberjack could not work if he did not eat. The wheat in the bread he ate for breakfast, the farmer who grew the wheat, the baker who baked the bread, they are all, in some way, present in this sheet of paper. The person who drove the truck to the mill, the people who worked in the factory, the inventor who designed the paper-making machine, the parents who raised them, the teachers who taught them. If we continue to look, we will see that the entire cosmos has conspired to bring this simple sheet of paper to our hands. It cannot exist by itself. It is filled with and made of countless things that we call non-paper. The paper is full of the sun, the cloud, the earth, the logger, the farmer. To be is to be. This is the profound reality of what the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh calls interbeing. Nothing in this universe is a solitary island. Everything leans on everything else, coexists with everything else, interbreathes with everything else. Now, let us turn this gentle, steady gaze upon the person we love, or the person we long to love. We see them as a single person, an individual named John or Sarah. We see a body, a face, a personality. But if we look with the eyes of interbeing, we see so much more. The person standing before you is not just a person. They are the sum of every sunrise they have ever witnessed. They are the kindness of a grandmother who baked them cookies as a child. That kindness is still alive in them, in the way they smile. They are the harsh word from a parent that left a small, invisible scar on their heart. That pain is also there, shaping their fears and their defenses. The books they have read, the music that has moved them to tears, the food they have eaten, the friends who have made them laugh, the very air they have breathed. It is all present in them, right now. They are a walking, breathing festival of the entire universe. To love them is to love all the elements, seen and unseen, that have come together to create them. And the web of connection includes you. When you look at them, you do not see them with neutral eyes. You see them through the lens of your own history, your own hopes, your own unhealed wounds. Your past heartbreaks are present in the way you guard your heart. Your childhood dreams of love are present in the expectations you place upon them. Your joy, your peace, your anxiety become part of the weather system of the relationship. The way you are is not separate from the way they are. You co-arise, moment by moment. The hard, solid line we draw between me and you begins to soften, to dissolve. When they are in pain, a part of you feels that pain. When they are joyful, a part of you feels that joy. Their happiness and your happiness are not two separate things. This is not a sentimental idea. It is the deepest truth of our existence. To recognize this is to move away from the selfish, transactional model of love. Love is no longer about what I can get from you. It becomes about how we, as interconnected beings, can nourish the garden of our shared existence. Consider a simple cup of tea. We hold it in our hands, feeling its warmth. It is a humble object, but let us practice looking deeply. In the ceramic of the cup, we can see the clay. In the clay, we can see the rich, dark earth from which it was dug. We can see the river that flowed nearby, and the water that was used to soften the clay. We can see the hands of the potter, their skill, their concentration, their breath as they centered the clay on the wheel. We can see the fire in the kiln that gave the cup its strength and its form, and in that fire, we see the life-giving energy of the sun. Now look at the tea itself. The amber liquid holds the tea leaf. The tea leaf holds the sunlight and the rain that nourished the tea plant on a distant mountainside. It holds the work of the tea farmer, the hands that plucked the leaves, the people who dried and processed them. When you hold this cup of tea, you are holding the earth, the sky, the fire, and the loving labor of many people. The entire universe is in your hands, offering itself to you in this simple, warm cup. To drink the tea with this awareness is to have communion with reality. It is an act of love. To love a person with the awareness of interbeing is just like this. It is to see that they and you are not separate entities, but miraculous meeting points of the entire cosmos. This understanding has the power to transform everything. It is the antidote to the lonely ego that feels separate and incomplete. When you feel anger toward your partner, you can look deeply and see the suffering in them. The tired child, the scared adolescent that is causing them to act in a certain way. Your anger can transform into compassion. When you feel jealousy, you can look deeply and see that their happiness does not take anything away from you. In fact, because you in turn are, their joy is also your joy. Your jealousy can transform into shared happiness. The idea of a separate I who needs to possess and control a separate you begins to seem like a strange and painful illusion. Love ceases to be a strategy for self-preservation and becomes a natural expression of this profound, underlying unity. So when we look at the empty space beside us, the space we long to fill with a partner, the wisdom of interbeing invites us to see that the space is not truly empty. It is filled with the presence of the whole world. It is filled with our connection to the air we are breathing, the ground beneath our feet, the people we pass on the street. By recognizing this vast web of connection that already holds and supports us, our desperate hunger for one single person begins to soften. It is not that the desire for partnership vanishes, but its character changes. It is no longer a frantic need to fill a void, but a gentle wish to share our fullness, to walk with another human being in mutual recognition of this beautiful, interconnected dance. But this new vision, naturally, leads to a very deep question. If the boundary between myself and the world is a fiction, if I am made of non-me elements like the sun, the earth, and my ancestors, then what exactly is this self that I have spent my whole life trying to protect and promote? What is this I that feels love and loss and loneliness? To answer this, we must journey even deeper into the silent, liberating heart of the teaching of no self. Having seen that we are deeply interconnected, that we are made of non-us elements like the sun and the clouds, we arrive at a question that lies at the very heart of our human experience. If I am so woven into the fabric of everything else, then what is this I? What is this self that feels so solid, so central, so real? This self that feels joy, and especially the self that feels the pain of loneliness and the sting of a broken heart. The wisdom of the Buddha offers an answer that can, at first, sound shocking, even frightening. The teaching is called anatta, often translated as no self. Hearing this, our mind may immediately resist. No self? Does that mean I don't exist? That I am nothing? This is a natural fear, but it is based on a misunderstanding. The teaching of no self is not a declaration of non-existence. It is the key to ultimate freedom. It does not say that you are nothing. It says that you are not a thing. It is not an annihilation, but a profound liberation from the prison of a small, separate, and frightened ego. Let us investigate this self together, not with judgment, but with gentle curiosity. What is it that we call I? We might first point to our body. This is me. But is it? Your body is in a constant state of flux. The cells that compose your body today are not the same cells that were there 7 years ago. The body you had as a child is gone. The body you will have in old age is yet to come. It is constantly changing, aging, renewing itself. It is more like a process than a static object. So, if the body is always changing, can it be the permanent, unchanging me we feel ourselves to be? Perhaps not. So, what about our feelings? Are you your feelings? One moment you feel happy, the next you feel sad, then irritated, then peaceful. Feelings arise, stay for a while, and then pass away, like clouds drifting across the sky. If you were your happiness, where would you go when sadness visits? If you were your anger, what would happen when peace arrives? To identify with any single feeling is to build your house on a cloud. They are visitors, experiences that pass through you, but they are not the entirety of you. Well then, what about our thoughts, our opinions, our ideas, our memories? Surely, these are me. But think for a moment. The opinions you held 10 years ago, are they the same ones you hold today? A new experience, a good book, a deep conversation can completely change your mind. Your thoughts are a flowing river of mental activity, constantly moving, shifting, and evolving. You can watch your thoughts, which means you are the awareness that is watching, not the thoughts themselves. If you can observe it, you cannot be it. This stream of thoughts is a vital part of your experience, but it is not a solid, unchanging self. This exploration shows us that when we look for a permanent, independent, separate self, we cannot find one. What we call the self is not a noun, but a verb. It is a dynamic process, a miraculous coming together of these changing elements, a physical body, flowing feelings, shifting thoughts, and the awareness that experiences them all. This is not a cause for despair. It is a great relief. It means you are not stuck. You are not a fixed, finished product. You are not defined by your past mistakes, your current anxieties, or your physical form. You are a flowing, open, and ever-changing process. You are free. Now, how does this liberating truth transform the experience of love? Most of our suffering in relationships comes from the clash of two egos, two fiercely protected ideas of a separate self. This ego, this constructed I, is the part of us that is full of needs and fears. It is the voice in our head that keeps a running tally of who is right and who is wrong. It is the source of thoughts like, "You are not meeting my needs. You hurt my feelings. I do so much for you, but what do I get in return? If you really loved me, you would change." This ego turns love into a contract, a negotiation, a battlefield. It is possessive because it sees another person as an extension of its own territory. It is jealous because it feels threatened by anything outside of its control. It is demanding because it believes its survival depends on the other person behaving in a certain way. This small, frightened self is the source of blame, judgment, and the endless, exhausting drama that drains the life out of so many relationships. Love from the perspective of no self, or anatta, is radically different. When the rigid, demanding ego is seen for what it is, a temporary collection of thoughts and feelings, it begins to soften. It loses its desperate grip. Love is no longer a battle for survival, but a spacious dance of two flowing processes. When your partner is having a difficult day and speaks with anger, you are less likely to take it personally. You don't think, they are attacking me. Instead, you can see, the feeling of anger is present in them right now. There is suffering there. You can respond with compassion instead of defensiveness. You are free to love the person as they are in that moment, without needing them to be different to satisfy your ego's requirements. You can offer them the space to be human, to be imperfect, to be a flowing process, just like you. This is a love that breathes. It is light, forgiving, and incredibly resilient. There is a beautiful Zen story that illustrates this perfectly. Imagine a great river. We can give it a name. Say, the river of life. We can stand on its bank, and we can say, I am looking at the river. We know it. It has an identity. But if we reach down and cup a handful of water and say, this right here is the river, we are mistaken. The water in our hands is already a memory, already flowing away downstream, replaced by new water. The river is not any single drop of water. The river's true nature is its constant, unending flow. It is a river precisely because it is always changing. Our self is like this river. Our partner's self is also like this river. To love them from the ego's perspective is to try and possess a handful of water. We try to hold on to the person they were when we first met. We try to freeze them in time, to make them conform to the photograph of them we hold in our mind. And this causes immense suffering, because it is an act against reality. It is trying to command the river to stop flowing. But to love from the perspective of no self is to love the entire river. It is to fall in love with the flow itself. You can sit by the riverbank and appreciate its beauty in the morning sun, its power during a storm, its tranquility in the moonlight. You don't need the river to be anything other than what it is. You are simply grateful to be in its presence, to witness its journey. This is a love without clinging. It is a love that honors the mystery and the freedom of another being. It is the love that sets both of you free. When we understand that there is no fixed, separate self, the entire architecture of our fear-based love begins to crumble. The need to prove ourselves, to defend our territory, to control another person, all of this begins to seem unnecessary, even absurd. We can relax, we can be vulnerable, we can love more generously, because we are not loving from a place of scarcity, from a small I that is afraid of being diminished. We are loving from a place of spaciousness, from an awareness that understands we are all part of the same flowing river of life. This profound insight into the nature of the self leads us directly to our next exploration. For if the self is a river, a process of constant change, then it must be true that everything else in our experience shares this transient, flowing nature. To truly love the river, we must also make peace with its ceaseless movement, with its beautiful and sometimes heartbreaking impermanence. We have seen that we are not fixed, solid selves, but flowing, dynamic rivers of experience. This realization, this taste of anatta, naturally carries us into the heart of another profound truth, one that governs every star in the sky and every beat of our own hearts. This is the truth of anicca, or impermanence. It is the universal law that nothing lasts forever. Everything that arises must, in time, pass away. All things are in a state of constant flux. The hard mountain is slowly being worn down by the wind. The vibrant flower that blooms in the morning will wilt by evening. Our own breath, once inhaled, must be released. This is not a cynical or depressing philosophy. It is simply a clear-eyed observation of reality. It is the fundamental rhythm of the cosmos, the great in-breath and out-breath of existence itself. And our relationship to this truth, our willingness or unwillingness to accept it, determines the entire quality of our love and our life. Much of our suffering in love is a direct result of waging a futile war against impermanence. We fall in love, and in the exhilarating peak of that experience, we feel a sense of bliss, of wholeness. It is a beautiful, precious moment, and our immediate, instinctual reaction is to try and bottle it, to freeze it, to make it last forever. We take photographs to capture the smile. We write diary entries to preserve the feeling. We create expectations that our partner should always make us feel this way. In our minds, we build a beautiful, solid monument to that perfect moment. We then spend our days trying to protect this monument from the natural erosion of time and change. When the initial intensity fades into a quieter, more comfortable companionship, we panic. We see it not as a natural evolution, but as a decay. We think, something is wrong. It's not like it used to be. When our partner changes, when they develop new interests, or when their body ages, or when they are tired and irritable, we feel a sense of betrayal to the monument we have built. This struggle is like building a magnificent castle of sand on the beach at low tide. We work tirelessly, building intricate towers and strong walls, admiring our creation under the warm sun. We believe this is our permanent home. Then, inevitably, the tide begins to turn. The first small waves lick at the foundations. We rush to build the walls higher, to dig moats, to fight back the ocean. We feel anger, despair, and frustration as the waves grow stronger, relentlessly washing away our hard work. But the ocean is not our enemy. The tide is not attacking us. The suffering does not come from the changing tide. The suffering comes from our own delusion, from the decision to build a permanent structure on a foundation that was always, by its very nature, meant to shift and change. Our relationships are like this. We suffer not because our feelings and our partners change, but because we cling to an illusion of permanence, fighting a battle against the very nature of reality. To embrace the truth of impermanence, however, is not to resign oneself to a life of loss. It is the exact opposite. It is the key that unlocks the profound and sacred beauty of the present moment. When you truly understand and accept that something is fleeting, you begin to cherish it with a depth that was previously impossible. Think of a breathtaking sunset. The sky is painted with impossible colors, gold and violet and crimson. Part of what makes it so heart-achingly beautiful is the knowledge that it is temporary. You know that in just a few moments, the colors will fade into darkness. And so, you give it your full attention. You don't check your phone. You don't think about tomorrow. You are simply present, drinking in the beauty. The impermanence of the sunset is what makes it so precious. This is the gift of anicca to our love lives. When you sit with your partner and you are deeply aware that this very moment, in this exact form, will never come again, everything changes. The mundane becomes magical. The simple act of drinking coffee together in the morning becomes a ceremony. The sound of their laughter becomes a priceless treasure. You listen more deeply because you know their words are a gift of this present moment. You look at their face more tenderly, appreciating the lines of experience and time, knowing that this face is always changing. You forgive their small annoyances more easily because in the vast context of our fleeting lives, these irritations are as insignificant as dust motes in a sunbeam. Accepting impermanence does not diminish love. It elevates it. It saves us from the laziness of taking each other for granted. It constantly reminds us that every moment we have together is a precious, unrepeatable gift, worthy of our fullest, most mindful attention. There is a powerful story from the life of the Buddha that illustrates this journey from resisting change to embracing it. A young woman named Kisa Gotami was blissfully happy with her husband and her infant son. But one day, tragedy struck and her baby died. Consumed by an unbearable grief, she could not accept the reality of his death. She picked up his small, lifeless body and went from house to house in her village, desperately begging for medicine that could bring him back to life. Some people mocked her, others pitied her, but no one could help. Finally, a wise man, seeing her profound suffering, advised her to go and see the Buddha. She ran to him, laid her son at his feet, and pleaded for the magical medicine. The Buddha looked at her with immense compassion and said, "There is only one thing I need to make the medicine. Bring me a single mustard seed from a house where no one has ever died." Filled with a frantic hope, Kisa Gotami went from door to door. At the first house, the family gladly offered her a mustard seed. But when she asked if anyone in their family had ever died, they looked down sadly and said, "Oh yes, we lost our beloved father just last year." At the next house, it was the same story. "We can give you a whole jar of mustard seeds, but our sweet daughter was taken from us." She went to every house in the village, rich and poor, and the answer was always the same. Every single family had been touched by the hand of loss. As the day wore on, the truth began to dawn in her heart. Her personal, agonizing grief, which had felt so isolating, so unique, began to dissolve into a much larger understanding. She realized that death and change are not a punishment inflicted upon a few, but the universal, shared condition of all beings. Her heart broke open, not with grief for just her own son, but with a vast compassion for all living things caught in this beautiful, painful cycle of birth and death. She understood impermanence, and in that understanding, she found the beginning of peace. This story is not just about physical death. In every long-term relationship, there are countless small deaths. There is the death of the initial, breathless infatuation. There is the death of old identities as you become partners and perhaps parents. There is the slow fading of youthful appearances. There is the letting go of old dreams to make way for new ones. If we fight these changes, if we cling to the ghosts of what used to be, our relationship becomes a museum of sorrows. But if we can be like Kisa Gotami, if we can understand that these changes are a natural and necessary part of life's flow, we can navigate them with grace and wisdom. A mature love is not a love that has avoided change. It is a love that has learned how to hold hands and walk through it together. It is a love that knows how to say goodbye to one season in order to welcome the next. Embracing the truths of interbeing, no self, and impermanence is like preparing the soil for a garden. We have cleared away the illusions of modern romance. We have tilled the earth, understanding its interconnected and ever-changing nature. We have created a foundation, not of rigid concrete, but of rich, fertile, and realistic ground. We have accepted that we are not building a static monument, but cultivating a living, breathing garden that will change with the seasons. Now, on this solid ground of reality, we are finally ready to plant the first and most essential seed. We are ready to begin the active cultivation of love, to learn the craft of a conscious heart. We begin by laying the first cornerstone of our new home, the practice of Maitrī, the boundless, unconditional warmth of loving kindness. Having cleared the ground of illusion and having surveyed the true nature of the landscape, of world of profound interconnection, of flowing selfhood, and of constant change, we stand ready. We are ready to build a new kind of home, a sanctuary of love founded on wisdom and acceptance. Where do we lay the first stone? Our instinct, trained by a lifetime of looking outward, is to begin with another person. But the wise ones, the spiritual architects of the heart, advise us to begin in a different place. The very first foundation stone of a love that can shelter and nourish another is laid in the soil of our own heart. The journey of boundless love begins with a single, radical act, the offering of kindness to ourselves. This is the practice of Maitrī, a Pali word often translated as loving kindness. And before we take another step, it is vital to understand what this is and what it is not. It is not selfishness. It is not narcissism. It is not self-indulgence. It is the simple, honest, and courageous recognition that you, in all your beautiful imperfection, are worthy of your own care. It is the fundamental prerequisite for any love that you hope to offer the world. There is a simple truth that we often hear but rarely absorb into the marrow of our bones. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Many of us walk through life with our own cups dangerously close to empty. We are often our own harshest critics, our own most relentless tormentors. An inner voice, a ghost from our past, constantly whispers that we are not good enough, not smart enough, not attractive enough, not worthy. We live in a state of low-grade, perpetual war with ourselves. We starve ourselves of acceptance and then wonder why we feel so hungry for it from others. When we try to love from this place of inner poverty, our love becomes a desperate transaction. We give, but we are unconsciously hoping to get something back that will fill our own emptiness. We offer a compliment, hoping for one in return to soothe our insecurity. We perform an act of service, hoping it will make us feel valuable and needed. Our love becomes a strategy for self-repair. We are not truly offering a gift. We are handing someone an invoice, with the payment due in the form of validation, approval, and a temporary reprieve from our own inner critic. This kind of love is heavy. It is burdened with unspoken expectations, and it ultimately cannot satisfy us or the person we are trying to love. It is like trying to warm someone else with a blanket that is already threadbare and cold. Imagine a gardener who wishes to cultivate a magnificent rosebush so that its beauty and fragrance can be shared with everyone who passes by. What does this gardener do? Does she stand over the small plant, yelling at it to grow faster? Does she criticize its thorns or the shape of its leaves? Of course not. A wise gardener knows that a plant cannot be forced to bloom. Instead, the gardener focuses on creating the perfect conditions for the plant to flourish according to its own nature. She gently prepares the soil, making sure it is rich and aerated. She provides the plant with clean water, not too much and not too little. She ensures the plant is placed where it can receive the life-giving light of the sun. She protects it from pests and harsh winds. She tends to it with patience, care, and unwavering kindness. The gardener's job is not to create the rose, but to create the conditions in which the rose can emerge naturally. This is precisely the nature of Maitrī for oneself. It is the act of becoming a wise and patient gardener for your own heart. It is the conscious decision to stop criticizing the plant and to start tending to the soil. It means creating the inner conditions for your own well-being to blossom. It is the practice of pulling the weeds of self-judgment, of watering the seeds of self-acceptance, and of turning your own face toward the warm, life-giving sun of your own innate goodness. It is a gentle, steady, and deeply compassionate process. And just like gardening, it is a practice. It requires patience, repetition, and a trust that if you provide the right conditions, a natural flourishing will occur. So how do we practice this? How do we become this gentle gardener? We can begin with a simple, formal practice of meditation. And I invite you to try this now, or to simply listen with an open heart. Find a comfortable position, sitting or lying down. Close your eyes if that feels right for you. Take a few deep, gentle breaths. You don't need to change your breath. Just feel the sensation of the air entering your body and the sensation of it leaving. Now, bring your awareness to your heart space, in the center of your chest. Don't search for any particular feeling. Just bring a gentle, friendly attention to this area. And now, we will silently, slowly, offer ourselves a few phrases of kindness. These are not affirmations. You must force yourself to believe. They are wishes. They are intentions. They are like gently watering a seed. The first phrase is, "May I be safe." Silently repeat this to yourself. May I be safe. This is a wish to be safe from harm, but most importantly, to be safe from the harm of your own harsh inner critic. A wish for a sanctuary within yourself. May I be safe. The next phrase is, "May I be happy." Gently offer this to your own heart. May I be happy. This is not a demand for excitement or euphoria. It is a simple, profound wish for a state of contentment, of well-being. A wish that you may know a genuine and lasting happiness. May I be happy. The next phrase is, "May I be healthy." This is a wish for the well-being of your body, this precious vehicle that carries you through life. It is an act of honoring your physical form, with all its strengths and vulnerabilities. May I be healthy and strong. And finally, may I live with ease. This is a wish to be free from the heavy burden of struggle, anxiety, and fear. It is a wish for a sense of grace and flow in your life. A wish that you may navigate the challenges of your life with a light and peaceful heart. May I live with ease. Continue to gently repeat these phrases, or whichever one resonates most with you. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. If your mind wanders, that is perfectly normal. Gently guide it back. If you feel resistance, or if difficult emotions arise, that is also okay. See if you can hold that resistance with kindness too. You can even say, "May I be at peace with this feeling of resistance." Sometimes, it can be powerful to visualize yourself as a small, innocent child. See that child in your mind's eye and offer these phrases of kindness directly to that vulnerable part of you. May you be safe. May you be happy. You are offering the comfort and protection that the child may have always longed for. Remember, the goal is not to force a feeling. The goal is to set an intention. The act of offering the wish is the practice itself. You are changing a deep, neurological habit from self-criticism to self-kindness. This practice is the beginning of filling your own cup. It is the most fundamental act of love, for without it, all our other attempts at love will be subtly distorted by our own inner poverty. When you begin to cultivate this inner warmth, this unconditional friendliness toward yourself, something remarkable begins to happen. The desperate need for validation from others begins to lessen. The fear of being alone begins to subside. You start to become a source of comfort and peace for yourself. You are lighting the fire in your own hearth. And when that fire is burning steadily, its warmth naturally begins to radiate outward. You don't have to force it. A person who is at peace with themselves is a peaceful presence in the world. A person whose heart is filled with kindness for themselves has an abundance of kindness to offer. Your cup, now being filled from its own inner spring, begins to overflow. And it is from this beautiful, effortless overflow that true, unconditional love for another can finally begin. It is a love that is a genuine gift, with no strings attached, offered freely from the fullness of your own heart. Having lit the gentle fire of loving kindness in our own hearth, we have begun the most essential work. We have learned to offer ourselves the warmth of acceptance, to fill our own cup from a spring of inner friendliness. This is the foundation, but a fire that is well tended does not keep its warmth to itself. Its heat naturally radiates outward, filling the room, touching everything around it. A cup that is truly full will inevitably and effortlessly begin to overflow. The practice of Maitrī, or loving kindness, follows this same natural law. Having learned to extend care to ourselves, we now turn, with a full and open heart, to offering this same gift to another. This is the moment where love begins its journey from an internal state into a relational art. It is the beginning of opening our arms to the world. For this next step in our practice, it is wise to choose a benefactor, a specific person to whom we will direct our loving kindness. In time, this practice can expand to include all beings. But to begin, we choose someone for whom our love already flows with relative ease. This could be a beloved partner, a cherished child, a parent, a sibling, or a dear friend. This person is our training ground. They are the first person we invite into the warm room of our cultivated heart. So, bring this person to mind now. See their face in your inner vision. See the way they smile, the light in their eyes. Hear the sound of their voice. Feel their presence, not as an idea, but as a living, breathing being who, just like you, wishes to be happy and free from suffering. Hold this image of them gently in your awareness as we prepare to extend the circle of warmth. The practice itself is a direct and beautiful extension of what we have already done. We begin, always, by returning to ourselves. It is essential to first reconnect with our own source of warmth before attempting to share it. So, let us take a moment, find a comfortable posture, settle into your body, and with a few gentle breaths, silently repeat the phrases for yourself. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. Feel the sincerity of this wish. Allow the gentle vibration of this intention to fill your own being, to top up your own cup until it feels full and abundant. Rest in this feeling of self-acceptance for a few moments. Now, from this place of fullness, let the image of your chosen loved one become clear in your mind's eye. They are standing before you, or sitting with you, held in your mind's gentle and caring gaze. And now, you shift the direction of the phrases. You offer them the same precious gifts you just offered yourself. Silently, from your heart to theirs, you begin the offering. May you be safe. Feel the depth of this wish. It is a prayer for their physical safety, that they may be protected from accident or harm. But it is also so much more. It is a wish for their emotional and mental safety. A wish that they may feel safe in the world, safe in their own skin, safe from the harshness of their own inner critic. It is a wish that they find a sanctuary of peace within themselves. Hold their image in your mind, and with all the sincerity of your heart, wish for them. May you be safe and protected. Now, you offer the next phrase. May you be happy. This is perhaps the most fundamental wish we have for those we love, but let us look deeply into the quality of this happiness. It is not just a wish for fleeting moments of pleasure or excitement. It is a profound prayer for their genuine, lasting well-being. A wish that they may discover the sources of a deep and authentic happiness that comes from within. A wish that they may feel contentment and a sense of joy in their own existence. As you see their smiling face, you offer the wish, may you be truly happy. Next, you extend the wish for well-being to their physical form. May you be healthy. In this phrase, you honor the preciousness of their body. You wish for it to be strong, vital, and free from illness. You wish for them to have the energy to live their life fully, to pursue their dreams, and to enjoy the simple miracle of being alive in a body. It is an offering of care for their entire physical existence. May you be healthy and full of vitality. And finally, you offer them a wish for peace. May you live with ease. Life is filled with challenges, with burdens, with moments of struggle and stress. This phrase is a gentle prayer that they may navigate these difficulties with a sense of grace. It is a wish that their burdens may be lightened, that their anxieties may be soothed, and that they may walk their path with a calm and untroubled heart. It is a wish for their freedom. May you live with ease. As you continue to repeat these phrases, you can add an energetic component to the practice. Imagine the warmth in your own heart space, beginning to glow like a soft, golden light. With each phrase you offer, imagine this light expanding from your chest and gently extending outward to envelop your loved one. This light is the very essence of your loving kindness. It holds them, it warms them, it reassures them, without demanding anything in return. It is a pure offering. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. If other thoughts or feelings arise during this practice, as they surely will, perhaps a memory of a past conflict or a worry about the future, do not struggle with them. Simply acknowledge them as passing clouds and gently return your focus to the phrases and to the light. Let even the difficult memories be held within this field of loving kindness. The practice is not about achieving a perfect state of concentration, but about the persistent, gentle return to the intention of love. This formal meditation is the training ground, the dojo for the heart. But the true test and expression of Maitrī is how it manifests in our daily lives. Off the cushion, loving kindness is not meant to remain a silent, internal practice. It is meant to be translated into action, to become the very way we relate to others. The first and most fundamental action of loving kindness is the act of truly seeing. So often, we look at our loved ones, but we don't really see them. We see the role they play: husband, wife, mother, son. We see a projection of our own needs and expectations. We see a familiar face, but we miss the subtle changes, the flicker of tiredness in their eyes, the new line of worry on their brow, the quiet joy they take in a small, simple pleasure. To practice Maitrī in action is to make the effort to look with fresh eyes, to see the person who is actually there in front of you, right now, not the idea of them you carry in your head. It is to notice, to pay attention. This attention is a profound act of love. It says to the other person, "You matter, I see you." From this deep seeing, the next practice of Maitrī arises naturally, the practice of deep listening. In our fast-paced world, the gift of one's full, undivided attention is one of the rarest and most precious things we can offer. Most of the time, we are not truly listening. We are half listening while thinking about what we want to say next, how we can solve their problem, or how their story relates back to us. Deep listening, born from loving kindness, is different. Its only aim is to help the other person suffer less. It is a silent offering of presence. When your partner comes home from a difficult day, the practice is to put down your phone, turn away from the screen, and give them the space to speak. You listen not to fix or to advise, unless asked, but simply to understand. You listen to the words they are saying, and you also listen to the feelings beneath the words. You offer them the safe, non-judgmental space of your presence, where they can empty their heart without fear of criticism or interruption. In doing so, you are telling them, your feelings are valid, your experience is important to me. I am here with you. This kind of listening can heal wounds and dissolve misunderstandings more effectively than any clever argument. As we cultivate this way of seeing and listening, our speech also begins to transform. Our words become vehicles of loving kindness. We become more mindful of the impact of what we say. We naturally start to avoid words that are intended to wound, to blame, or to shame. We understand that a harsh word, spoken in a moment of anger, can leave an invisible scar that lasts for years. Instead, we make a conscious effort to use what is called loving speech. This means speaking truthfully, but always wrapping that truth in kindness. It means looking for opportunities to encourage, to appreciate, and to express gratitude. It is about celebrating their successes and acknowledging their efforts. There is a story of an elderly couple who were asked the secret to their long and happy marriage. The husband smiled and said, "It's quite simple. Every morning when I wake up, my first thought is, what can I do today to bring a smile to her face?" This is the daily practice of loving speech and loving action. It is the understanding that love is not built on grand, dramatic gestures, but on the steady accumulation of thousands of small, daily acts of kindness, like making a cup of tea for them when they are tired, or leaving them a small note of appreciation. These are the bricks and mortar of a strong and loving connection. It is crucial, however, to understand the important difference between authentic loving kindness and what is often called people-pleasing. They can look similar on the surface, but their inner motivation is entirely different. People-pleasing is rooted in fear. It is the fear of rejection, the fear of conflict, the fear of not being liked. A people-pleaser will say yes when they mean no. They will suppress their own needs and feelings to keep the peace. They might even enable another person's harmful behavior because they are too afraid to set a boundary. This is not Maitrī. This is self-abandonment, disguised as niceness. True loving kindness, on the other hand, is rooted in wisdom and strength. It is motivated by a genuine desire for the long-term well-being of both yourself and the other person. Because it is rooted in wisdom, it knows that sometimes the kindest and most loving thing you can do is to say no. Sometimes the most loving act is to set a clear boundary to protect your own well-being or to prevent the other person from causing harm. Sometimes, loving speech requires you to speak a difficult truth that the other person may not want to hear, because you know it is necessary for their growth. The key difference is the intention. People-pleasing asks, "What must I do to make you like me and to avoid conflict?" Loving kindness asks, "What is the truest and most beneficial action for the well-being of us both in the long run?" True Maitrī is never weak. It is the potent combination of a soft heart and a strong back. By practicing loving kindness in this way through formal meditation and through the actions of seeing, listening, and speaking, we transform love from a noun into a verb. It ceases to be a fleeting feeling that we hope to fall into, and becomes a conscious capacity that we choose to cultivate and express, moment by moment. We are no longer waiting for love to happen to us. We are actively participating in its creation. We are tending the garden of our relationship with daily acts of care. This practice fills our connections with an immense warmth and joy. It provides the light and the nourishment for growth. But even the most well-tended garden is subject to the changing seasons. There will be times of storm and times of drought. Our loved ones will inevitably face their own moments of pain, sickness, disappointment, and sorrow. A love that is only capable of celebrating in the sunshine is an incomplete, fair-weather love. To be a true companion on the entire journey of life, our hearts need to cultivate another essential quality: the ability to stay present, open, and supportive when the skies turn dark and the rain begins to fall. To meet suffering with strength and tenderness, we must now open ourselves to the sister of loving kindness, the profound and powerful practice of compassion. Having learned to cultivate the warm, sunlit fields of loving kindness, wishing for our own happiness and the happiness of those we love, we must now turn to face the other side of the landscape. For the human experience is not always one of sunshine. Life, in its profound and unavoidable rhythm, also brings with it the seasons of rain, of storm, of darkness. It brings pain, sickness, loss, and sorrow. A love that is only equipped for fair weather is a fragile and incomplete love. It is a house with a beautiful garden, but no roof to shelter its inhabitants when the storm comes. To build a love that is a true sanctuary, a love that can endure all seasons, we must cultivate the heart's response to suffering. This is the practice of Karuṇā, the Sanskrit word for compassion. Compassion is one of the most vital and most misunderstood qualities of the heart. It is not mere sentimentality. It is not an emotional breakdown in the face of pain. And most importantly, it is not pity. To understand compassion, we must first clearly distinguish it from pity, for they are fundamentally different energies. Pity looks down from above. When we pity someone, we stand on a high, dry ground of imagined superiority, looking down at them in their pit of suffering. We say, "Oh, you poor thing. I am so glad that isn't me." Pity creates separation. It reinforces the ego of the person feeling it, confirming their own fortunate position. It is a condescending emotion that, while perhaps well-intentioned, often disempowers the person who is suffering, making them feel small and helpless. Pity keeps a safe distance. Compassion, Karuṇā, does the opposite. It meets the other person at eye level. It dares to step off the high, dry ground and enter into the reality of the other's pain. It is born from the wisdom of interbeing, the deep recognition that we are not separate. Compassion does not say, "Your suffering is over there." It says, "I see your suffering, and I recognize this same capacity for suffering within my own heart. Your pain touches my own humanity." It does not create distance, it closes it. It is the trembling of the heart in the face of pain, combined with the courageous resolve to not turn away. It is the powerful wish for a being to be free from their suffering. While pity says, "I feel sorry for you," compassion says, "I feel this with you." It is a love that is not afraid of the dark. So how do we cultivate this brave and tender quality of the heart? The practice of compassion begins with the commitment to look and to listen deeply, beyond the surface of things. Very often, a person's suffering does not present itself in a gentle or vulnerable way. It wears a disguise. It can manifest as anger, irritation, blame, criticism, or a cold, silent withdrawal. our instinctual reaction is to respond to the disguise, to the anger with more anger, to the withdrawal with our own hurt feelings. We react to the harsh bark on the outside of the tree, but compassion invites us to do something different. It invites us to practice deep looking, to look past the bark and see the pain at the root of the tree. It is the practice of asking, with a genuine and quiet curiosity, what is the suffering that is causing this person to act in this way? When your partner lashes out in anger after a difficult day at work, compassion looks beneath the anger and sees the exhaustion, the fear of failure, the feeling of being overwhelmed. When a friend becomes distant and withdrawn, compassion looks past the silence and sees the possibility of a deep sadness or a private struggle they don't know how to share. This deep looking is not an intellectual analysis. It is an act of heartfelt inquiry. It changes our entire orientation. We stop seeing the person as a problem to be solved or an adversary to be defeated, and we start seeing them as a fellow human being who is in pain. This deep looking is paired with the practice of deep listening. As we learned with loving kindness, this is the act of offering our full, non-judgmental presence. When applied as a practice of compassion, our listening is attuned specifically to the sound of suffering. We listen not just for the story, but for the emotion beneath the story. We listen for the unspoken cry for help. The most compassionate thing we can do for a person in pain is often not to offer advice, solutions, or optimistic platitudes. Our urge to immediately fix the problem often comes from our own discomfort. We want their pain to go away because it makes us uncomfortable. Compassion allows us to tolerate our own discomfort and simply stay present with them, to offer them the silent, powerful message that they are not alone in their pain. By doing so, we give them the space they need to touch their own suffering, to understand it, and to allow it to transform. We become a safe harbor in their storm, a steady presence that does not get swept away by the waves. In the great traditions of Buddhist art, there is a powerful and beautiful image that perfectly embodies this active compassion. It is the figure of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva of compassion. A bodhisattva is a being who, on the verge of final enlightenment, chooses to remain in the world out of a deep vow to help all beings find freedom from suffering. Avalokiteshvara is often depicted with 1,000 arms and 1,000 eyes. At first, this image might seem strange or monstrous, but its symbolism is profoundly beautiful. The 1,000 eyes are not for judging or for surveillance. They represent the compassionate being's ability to see all the countless forms of suffering in the world, to be aware of the pain in every corner, to never be blind to another's distress. This is the practice of deep looking, magnified 1,000 times, and on the palm of each of the 1,000 hands, there is an eye, signifying that every action is guided by wisdom. The 1,000 hands themselves represent the countless skillful ways that compassion can manifest. One hand might be offering a bowl of food to the hungry. Another might be offering a gentle touch to someone who is grieving. One hand may be holding up a shield to protect someone from danger. Another may be offering the medicine of a wise teaching. Yet another hand may simply be open in a gesture of silent, patient presence. This image teaches us that compassion is not a passive feeling. It is an active, creative, and responsive engagement with the world. We do not need to be a celestial deity to practice this. Each of us, in our own lives, can be a small bodhisattva for the people we love. We can use our 2 eyes to truly see their suffering, and we can use our 2 hands to offer whatever is needed in that moment. Sometimes, what is needed is a hug. Sometimes, a hot cup of tea. Sometimes, the wisdom to speak a difficult truth. And sometimes, the greatest gift our hands can offer is to simply rest in our lap, in a gesture of quiet, unwavering presence. Compassion, then, is the strength of the heart to remain open in the presence of pain. It is the courage to move towards suffering when everything in us wants to pull away. It completes the circle of love that Maitrī, or loving kindness, began. Loving kindness is the wish for all beings to be happy, and compassion is the wish for all beings to be free from suffering. Together, they create a love that is truly unconditional, a love that can celebrate in the sunlight and provide shelter in the storm. It makes our relationships resilient, deep, and a true source of refuge in a challenging world. To feel compassion for someone we already love, someone whose pain naturally touches our own heart, is a beautiful and essential practice. But the human heart, in its boundless potential, is capable of even more. The true test of our compassion arrives when we are faced not with the suffering of a loved one, but with the suffering of a person we find difficult, a person who has hurt us, a person we might even consider an enemy. Can our compassion extend even to them? To answer this question, we must venture into one of the most challenging and transformative territories of the heart, the practice of loving our enemies. We have walked the sunlit path of loving kindness, wishing for happiness, and we have traveled into the shadowed valleys of compassion, meeting suffering with an open heart. Our love is growing stronger, more resilient. Now, we arrive at the frontier of this practice, the place where the heart is asked to perform its most courageous and transformative act. We are asked to extend our compassion not just to those we love, or to neutral strangers, but to those who have caused us pain. We are asked to love our enemies. Let us be very clear from the outset. This instruction is not a call for sentimentality. It is not a suggestion to ignore harm, to become a doormat, or to force an artificial affection for someone who has betrayed or abused you. For many of us, the phrase itself can sound impossible, a naive platitude that has no place in the real world of deep hurts and injustices. So, let us reframe it. This practice is not primarily for the benefit of the other person. It is for us. It is the key to our own liberation. It is the act of removing the poison of hatred from our own hearts, not for their sake, but for ours. It is the ultimate declaration of our own inner freedom. To understand this, we must first examine the nature of hatred and resentment. When someone has hurt us deeply, it is natural to feel anger. But when we hold on to that anger, when we water it daily with memories of the offense, it solidifies into something harder and more toxic: resentment. The great spiritual teachers have said that holding on to resentment is like grasping a burning piece of coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. No matter how good your aim is, you are the one who is being burned, right here, right now. Hatred is a fire that consumes the vessel in which it is stored. It floods our bodies with stress hormones. It keeps us trapped in a cycle of replaying past events, and it casts a bitter shadow over our entire experience of the present moment. By holding on to hatred, we allow the person who hurt us to continue hurting us long after the original event has passed. We give them free rent in the most precious real estate we own, our own mind. The practice of extending compassion to our enemy is the act of serving them an eviction notice. It is the decision to say, "You no longer have the power to disturb my peace. I am reclaiming my own heart." The gateway to this profound act of self-liberation is the practice of deep looking, the same practice we used with our loved ones, but now directed toward the person who has caused us pain. This requires courage. We must be willing to look past the monstrous caricature of them that we hold in our minds and try to see the suffering human being behind the harmful actions. For this is a fundamental truth. Happy, peaceful, wise people do not go around causing harm. Hurt people. Harmful actions are almost always born from a place of deep inner pain or profound ignorance. So we look. We don't excuse their behavior, but we try to understand its source. We ask ourselves, what must it be like to be that person? What fears, what insecurities, what desperate needs might be driving them? Were they taught that the only way to feel powerful is to dominate others? Were they never shown true love themselves, and so they don't know how to give it? Are they so consumed by their own greed, their own jealousy, their own fear, that they are blind to the pain they cause? When we look deeply enough, we may begin to see the frightened child inside the hurtful adult. We may see a person who is utterly lost, trapped in their own private hell of negative emotions. This does not, in any way, condone what they did. We can fully acknowledge that their actions were wrong and unacceptable, but understanding the source of the poison allows us to stop drinking it ourselves. It shifts our perspective from personal hatred to a more impersonal, tragic understanding of the human condition. We move from seeing them as an evil monster to seeing them as a deeply suffering being. And the heart's natural response to suffering is compassion. The life of the Buddha provides the ultimate example of this practice in action. His own cousin, a man named Devadatta, became his sworn enemy, consumed by a venomous jealousy and a lust for power. Devadatta dedicated his life to destroying the Buddha. He tried to create a schism in the monastic community. He hired assassins to kill the Buddha. When that failed, he climbed a mountain and rolled a massive boulder down toward him, hoping to crush him. The boulder shattered, and only a small splinter grazed the Buddha's foot. On another occasion, he got an elephant drunk on wine and released it onto the narrow path where the Buddha was walking, intending for the enraged animal to trample him. In every single one of these instances, the Buddha's response was not fear, not retaliation, and not anger. It was a calm, steady, and unwavering compassion. As the drunken elephant charged, bellowing with rage, the Buddha did not run. He simply stood his ground and radiated a powerful field of pure loving kindness toward the animal. The elephant, it is said, slowed its charge, grew calm, and knelt peacefully at the Buddha's feet. When his attendant, Ananda, was weeping with anger over Devadatta's actions, the Buddha gently explained that he felt only compassion for his cousin. He saw past the monstrous acts to the deep sickness of jealousy and hatred that was consuming Devadatta from the inside out. He knew that Devadatta's actions were creating a future of immense suffering for himself. The Buddha was like a master physician looking at a very sick patient. He did not hate the patient for having the disease. He felt compassion for their suffering and wished only for them to be cured. This is the model for our practice. We are asked to see the sickness of hatred, greed, and ignorance in our enemy, and respond not with more hatred, but with the healing medicine of compassion. The practice, then, is to consciously include this person in our compassion meditation. After generating compassion for ourselves and for our loved ones, we bravely bring the image of our enemy to mind. We acknowledge the pain, the anger, the hurt they have caused us. We don't deny it or suppress it. We allow the feeling to be there, and then, holding that pain with great tenderness, we try to offer the phrases. It may be difficult. The words may feel like ash in our mouths, but we try. May you be free from the suffering that is at the root of your actions. May you be free from your anger, your jealousy, your fear. May you one day find the peace that would make it impossible for you to cause harm to others. May you too be happy. This practice may take a long time. It may be the work of a lifetime. But every time we do it, we loosen the chains of resentment. We take one more step out of the prison of our own hatred. We are not doing it to let them off the hook. We are doing it to take ourselves off the hook of perpetual suffering. This is the highest form of emotional strength. It is the ultimate act of self-care. By extending our compassion even to the person who has hurt us the most, we make our heart truly boundless. We create an inner sanctuary of peace that no one can take from us, because its doors are open to everyone, without exception. Having cultivated the heart that can wish happiness for others through Maitrī, and the heart that can meet all suffering with love through Karuṇā, we have built a profound foundation of emotional resilience and strength. We have learned to be present for the sunshine and the storm. But there is another crucial quality to cultivate, another color to add to the palette of a fully awakened heart. What is our response when the sun shines brightly, not for us, but for someone else? What do we feel when we witness the success, the good fortune, and the joy of others? To complete our capacity for a selfless and generous love, we must now turn to the third of the four divine abodes, the practice of Muditā, the beautiful and sometimes challenging art of sympathetic joy. Our journey into the heart has taken us through extraordinary landscapes. With Maitrī, loving kindness, we learn to cultivate the wish for our own happiness and the happiness of others. With Karuṇā, compassion, we develop the strength to meet our own suffering and the suffering of others with a tender and courageous heart. We have learned to be a friend to ourselves and a refuge for those in pain. We have built a heart that is both warm and strong. Now, we arrive at a third great chamber in this inner home, a quality that adds a brilliant, joyful light to our love. We turn our attention to the practice of Muditā, which can be translated as sympathetic or appreciative joy. It is the heart's capacity to genuinely rejoice in the happiness, success, and good fortune of others. In a world that is often driven by competition and comparison, Muditā can be one of the most challenging and therefore one of the most liberating qualities to cultivate. Its direct opposite, its poison, is a feeling we all know: envy. Envy is the subtle, painful tightening in the chest we feel when we hear of a friend's promotion. It is the flicker of resentment when we see a couple who seems happier than we are. It is the feeling of being diminished by another person's light. This feeling arises from the ego's mistaken belief in scarcity. The ego operates from a place of poverty, believing that there is a finite amount of happiness, success, and love available in the world. From this perspective, life is a zero-sum game. If someone else gets a big slice of the pie, that must mean there is less for me. This painful illusion is amplified relentlessly in our modern culture. We carry devices in our pockets that deliver a constant stream of curated evidence of other people's victories. We scroll through images of perfect bodies, exotic vacations, dream weddings, and brilliant achievements. It is a highlight reel of humanity, and it can easily trigger our own sense of inadequacy, making us feel that our own life is somehow lacking, that we are falling behind in some imaginary race. Envy is a self-imposed suffering. It is a form of blindness that prevents us from seeing the abundance in our own lives because we are so focused on what others have. It isolates us, building walls of resentment between ourselves and others, preventing the very connection we crave. Muditā, sympathetic joy, is the direct antidote to this poison. It is the practice of seeing the world not as a competition, but as a shared experience, where the happiness of one can be a source of happiness for all. Like the other great virtues of the heart, Muditā is a quality that can be consciously cultivated through practice. The training begins, as always, close to home, We start with someone we love dearly, someone whose happiness is already intimately connected to our own. Bring this person to mind. It could be your partner, your child, or your closest friend. Now, instead of focusing on their suffering, as we did with compassion, I invite you to remember a time when they were truly, genuinely happy. Perhaps it was the day they graduated, the moment they achieved a lifelong goal, or a simple, unguarded moment of pure, infectious laughter. Try to see that moment clearly in your mind. See the light in their eyes, the joyful expression on their face. Try to feel the happiness that was beating in their heart at that moment. Let their joy touch you. As you hold this image and this feeling, you can begin to water that seed of joy with the phrases of Muditā. Silently, from your heart, you can offer them these wishes. My friend, I am so happy that you are happy. I rejoice in your good fortune. May your joy continue. May your happiness not fade, but grow even stronger and more stable. Your happiness is my happiness. Notice what this feels like in your body. It is a light, expansive, and warm feeling. There is no clinging, no demanding. It is simply the selfless celebration of another's well-being. It is a pure and beautiful expression of love. Once you feel comfortable with this practice for a loved one, you can begin to expand the circle. You can practice with a friend or a colleague at work. When you hear they have succeeded in a project, instead of feeling a pang of competition, you can consciously pause and offer them a silent, "Congratulations, I am happy for your success." You can even practice with strangers. When you see a family laughing together in a park, or a young couple holding hands, you can offer them a silent wish, "May your happiness continue." This practice begins to rewire the habitual, conditioned response of our mind. We train it to move from comparison to celebration, from envy to appreciation. Every time we choose mudita over envy, we are choosing connection over separation. We are choosing love over fear. We are choosing a rich and abundant view of the world over a poor and scarce one. There is a wonderful story told in many spiritual traditions that perfectly illustrates the nature of mudita. A seeker is granted a tour of the afterlife and asks to be shown both hell and heaven. First, he is taken to hell. To his surprise, he enters a large hall containing a magnificent banquet. A long table is piled high with the most delicious foods imaginable, but the people seated around the table are emaciated, weeping, and starving. The seeker is confused until he sees why. Each person's arms have been splintered straight with long sticks, so they cannot bend their elbows. In their hands, they hold extremely long chopsticks. They can reach the food on the table, but they cannot bring it to their own mouths. Their torment is to be surrounded by abundance while being trapped in the prison of their own selfish focus. Next, the seeker is taken to heaven. He is astonished to find the exact same scene, the same grand hall, the same magnificent banquet table, the same long chopsticks splintered to everyone's arms. But here, the hall is filled with the sounds of laughter and joyful conversation. Everyone is happy and well fed. The seeker watches for a moment, and then he understands. The people in heaven have learned a simple secret. They are using their long chopsticks not to try and feed themselves, but to reach across the table and feed the person sitting opposite them. In nourishing their neighbor, they too are nourished. In finding joy in feeding another, their own hunger is satisfied. This is the very heart of mudita. Envy is the belief that we must feed ourselves, and it leads to the starvation of hell. Sympathetic joy is the profound realization that celebrating and contributing to the happiness of others is what nourishes us all. It is the understanding that joy is not a limited resource, that gets used up. It is a renewable energy source that multiplies when it is shared. When you feel joy for another's success, you are not losing anything. You are doubling the amount of joy in the world. Your heart and their heart are both filled. Practicing Muditā transforms our relationships. When your partner succeeds, you become their greatest cheerleader, not a rival. Your love becomes a space of unconditional support and celebration. When your friends do well, you feel genuinely happy for them, which deepens the bonds of trust and affection. This practice purifies our love, cleansing it of the subtle poisons of jealousy, scorekeeping, and competition. It makes our love vast, generous, and truly selfless. So we have now explored 3 of the 4 great qualities of the heart. We have Maitrī, the sun that wishes for all to be happy. We have Karuṇā, the shelter that protects all from the storm of suffering. And we have Muditā, the joyful celebration when the sun shines on others. Our heart is becoming a complete and beautiful home. But what is the foundation upon which this entire structure rests? What is the quality that keeps all of these powerful emotions in perfect balance, preventing loving kindness from becoming attachment, compassion from becoming despair, and joy from becoming over-excitement? To complete our inner sanctuary, we must now turn to the 4th and final of the divine abodes, the unshakable, peaceful ground of Upekṣā, or equanimity. We have journeyed through the radiant warmth of loving kindness, the tender embrace of compassion, and the selfless delight of sympathetic joy. We have learned to open our hearts to happiness, to suffering, and to the good fortune of others. These 3 qualities, Maitrī, Karuṇā, and Muditā, the active, vibrant energies of a boundless love. They are the heart reaching out to the world with warmth, strength, and celebration. But for these powerful energies to be truly wise and effective, they need a container. They need a ground of profound stability and peace. A love that is all energy without a container can become exhausting, unbalanced, and unsteady. To complete the architecture of a liberated heart, we now arrive at the 4th and final of the divine abodes. This is Upekṣā, a Pali word that translates as equanimity. It is the vast, silent, and unshakable peace that holds all of life's experiences in a loving, non-discriminating embrace. Like the other great qualities of the heart, equanimity is often misunderstood. Hearing the word, we might imagine a state of cold indifference, of stoic detachment, of simply not caring. But this is the opposite of Upekṣā. Indifference is a state of shutting down, of closing the heart to avoid pain. It is a form of aversion. Equanimity is a state of radical openness. It is a heart so open, so vast, and so fearless that it is not shaken by the changing winds of life. Indifference says, "I don't care." Equanimity says, "I care so deeply, but I will not be thrown off balance. I will hold it all." It is not the absence of feeling, but the ability to feel everything without being swept away by it. Imagine the deep ocean. On the surface, waves may crash and storms may rage, but deep below, the ocean remains still, silent, and undisturbed. The emotions of life are the waves on the surface. Equanimity is the deep, quiet stillness of the ocean's depths. Upekṣā is the great balancing force that brings wisdom to the other 3 qualities. It prevents loving kindness, Maitrī, from degenerating into anxious, clinging attachment. We can love someone deeply without our happiness being entirely dependent on their actions or approval. It prevents compassion, Karuṇā, from collapsing into what is sometimes called compassion fatigue, or overwhelming grief. We can be present with another's intense suffering without being drowned by it, allowing us to offer steady support instead of adding our own panic to the situation. And it prevents sympathetic joy, Muditā, from becoming manic excitement or attachment to pleasurable states, which inevitably leads to disappointment when they fade. Equanimity is the calm, spacious awareness that holds both the pleasant and the unpleasant, the joy and the sorrow, with an even, steady, and loving hand. It is the wisdom that knows, this, too, shall pass. In our relationships, the gift of equanimity is the gift of freedom. It is the foundation of a truly non-attached love. This does not mean a love without connection or intimacy. It means a love without clinging, a love without the demand that the other person be a certain way in order to make us happy. So much of our relational suffering comes from being on an emotional roller coaster that is controlled by another person's moods and behaviors. When they are happy and affectionate, we are on a high. When they are distant or upset, we crash into a low. Our inner peace is held hostage. Equanimity is the practice of gently unhooking our own state of being from these external conditions. It is the realization that we can love someone completely, support them fully, and wish for their happiness, while maintaining our own center of gravity, our own inner peace. This is a profound act of trust. It is a love that says, I love you exactly as you are. I trust your journey, even when I don't understand it. You do not need to change to earn my love or to secure my peace. My peace comes from within. This gives the other person an incredible amount of space to breathe, to be themselves, to grow, and to make mistakes. We stop trying to manage their feelings or control their path. We become a calm, steady presence in their life, a safe harbor they can return to, rather than another source of pressure and expectation. This is a love that liberates both the lover and the beloved. It is the ultimate expression of trust and respect, born from a peace that does not depend on outcomes. The most powerful image for Upekṣā is that of a great mountain. I invite you to bring a majestic mountain to your mind. See its solid base, rooted deep in the earth. See its peak, reaching high into the sky. This mountain has stood here for millions of years, a silent witness to everything that happens around it. The mountain experiences the gentle warmth of the spring sun. It feels the soft touch of the morning mist. It allows life to bloom on its slopes. This is its capacity for loving kindness and sympathetic joy. The mountain also endures the violent thunderstorms of summer, the lashing rain, and the fierce winds. It does not resist the storm. It allows the rain to wash its face and nourish the life it holds. This is its capacity for compassion, for being with difficulty without breaking. The mountain experiences the bitter cold of winter, the heavy blanket of snow that covers it in silence. It does not complain or wish for a different season. It simply holds the winter with a quiet dignity. Through all of this, the sun, the rain, the storms, the snow, the changing seasons, the passing of days and nights, the mountain remains. It is not indifferent to the weather. The weather is a part of its experience. But the weather does not change the fundamental nature of the mountain. It does not cling to the sunny days or have aversion to the stormy ones. It remains grounded, stable, vast, and present for it all. This is equanimity. To cultivate Upekṣā is to become like this mountain. Our core of being can remain peaceful and still, even as the changing weather of life praise and blame, success and failure, pleasure and pain, gain and loss whirls around us and through us. We learn to let our experiences come and go, like clouds passing in the sky, without losing our connection to the vast, clear, and peaceful sky itself. Equanimity is the culmination of our practice, the quality that integrates and perfects all the others. It is the final seal on the heart of a bodhisattva. With a heart of loving kindness, we wish for all beings to have happiness. With a heart of compassion, we wish for all beings to be free from suffering. With a heart of sympathetic joy, we rejoice when they find happiness. And with a heart of equanimity, we can hold all of it, their joy, their pain, their successes, their failures, their love for us, their indifference, to use in a vast, steady, and unconditional embrace, free from prejudice or preference. This is the ground of true freedom, a peace that cannot be shaken. Having now explored the 4 chambers of this boundless home of the heart, Maitrī, Karuṇā, Muditā, and Upekṣā have completed the inner construction. We have cultivated the essential qualities of a truly awakened love. The foundation is laid, the walls are raised, the roof is complete. Now, we must learn how to live in this beautiful home. We must learn how to bring this profound inner state out into the world through our actions and, most immediately, through our words. The next stage of our journey takes us from the silent world of inner cultivation to the practical art of mindful communication, beginning with the power of our speech to either create suffering or to heal it. With our hearts cultivated to be a boundless place of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, we are now faced with a practical and vital question. How do we live from this place? How does this profound inner transformation translate into our interactions with the world, especially with those we love? The most immediate and powerful way we connect with others is through the faculty of speech. Our words are the bridges, or the walls, that we build between us. A single word can be a seed of joy or a drop of poison. A sentence can open a heart or inflict a wound that festers for a lifetime. Therefore, the practice of bringing the qualities of our awakened heart into our communication is one of the most essential aspects of a spiritual life. This is the art of loving speech, a way of using our words not to harm, but to heal, not to divide, but to connect. In the Buddhist tradition, this practice is known as right speech, and it is considered a cornerstone of the path to wisdom. It is far more than simply being polite. It is a deep and conscious discipline, a commitment to make our words a true reflection of our deepest intentions. It asks us to become guardians of our own mouths, to understand the creative power we wield with every sentence, and to use that power skillfully, with precision and love. This art can be understood through 4 guiding principles, 4 pillars that support a truly mindful and loving way of communicating. The first pillar is to speak truthfully and to abstain from all forms of falsehood. This is the bedrock of trust, the very foundation upon which any healthy relationship is built. On the surface, this seems simple. Don't tell lies. But if we look deeply, we see that dishonesty can take many subtle forms. There is, of course, the outright lie, spoken to deceive or to avoid consequences. But there is also the exaggeration we use to make a story more exciting or to make ourselves seem more important. There is the convenient omission, where we leave out a crucial piece of the truth because it is unflattering or uncomfortable. There are the so-called white lies, which we often tell to spare someone's feelings, but which are frequently motivated by our own desire to avoid a difficult conversation. And there is the broken promise, which is a form of untruthfulness directed toward the future. Each of these small dishonesties, no matter how well-intentioned, is like a tiny crack in the foundation of a house. One crack may not seem like much, but over time, they multiply, weakening the entire structure until it can no longer provide a feeling of safety and security. To commit to loving speech is to commit to the radical act of truthfulness in all its forms. It requires courage. It requires the courage to be vulnerable, to admit when we have made a mistake, to share our true feelings, even when we fear they might be rejected, and to trust that our relationship is strong enough to hold the reality of who we are. It is the understanding that true intimacy cannot be built on a foundation of illusion. Love can only flourish in the clear, open air of the truth. The second pillar of loving speech is to abstain from divisive or slanderous speech. These are words that set one person against another, that sow seeds of discord and suspicion. In its most obvious form, this is gossip. When we speak ill of a third person to our partner, or when we complain about our partner's family or friends in a way that creates an us against them mentality, we are practicing divisive speech. We may feel a temporary sense of closeness or alliance with the person we are speaking to, but it is a false intimacy built on negativity, and it ultimately poisons the larger field of our relationships. But this principle also applies to the way we speak within the relationship itself, especially during times of conflict. When we use absolute language like, "You always do this," or "You never listen to me," we are practicing divisive speech. We are drawing a hard line in the sand, creating two opposing camps, the perpetrator and the victim. This language is a form of verbal warfare. It closes the door to understanding and makes reconciliation nearly impossible. The practice of loving speech invites us to abandon this language of accusation. It encourages us to speak from our own experience, using I statements. Instead of saying, "You are so inconsiderate," we might say, "When this happened, I felt hurt and unimportant." This is not an attack. It is a vulnerable offering of our own truth. It is a bridge, not a wall. It is speech that seeks to unite, not to divide. The third pillar is to abstain from harsh, cruel, or abusive speech. This is perhaps the most direct and obvious way that we use words to cause pain. It includes yelling, insulting, name-calling, and cursing at another person. But like falsehood, harsh speech also has its more subtle and insidious forms. Sarcasm, when used as a weapon to belittle or mock another person, is a form of harsh speech. The backhanded compliment, which delivers a criticism disguised as praise, is a form of harsh speech. A condescending or patronizing tone of voice can be more wounding than the words themselves. And there is the quiet cruelty of passive aggression, where we use subtle digs and veiled insults to express our anger without taking responsibility for it. All of these forms of harsh speech spring from the same source, our own uncared for anger and pain. When we feel hurt or threatened, our primitive brain can lash out, using words as weapons to defend itself. The practice of loving speech is therefore deeply connected to the practice of mindfulness of our own emotions. It is the commitment to pause before we speak, especially when we feel anger rising. In that pause, we have a choice. We can either let the raw energy of our anger erupt through our mouths, causing harm to another and to ourselves, or we can recognize the anger, breathe with it, and tend to it with the compassion we have been cultivating. We can say to ourselves, "Anger is here. I will take care of it." Only when the storm of our emotion has begun to pass can we hope to speak with wisdom and skill. Loving speech is gentle speech. It is a commitment, even when delivering a difficult message or setting a firm boundary, to choose words that are constructive, respectful, and free from the intention to wound. The fourth and most subtle pillar is to abstain from idle chatter or frivolous speech. This is not a puritanical injunction against lightheartedness or fun. It is an invitation to value the power of our words and the preciousness of silence. So much of our daily conversation is simply noise. We talk about the weather, we repeat headlines, we engage in surface-level chatter, often because we are uncomfortable with the silence. This idle talk can become a form of distraction, a way of avoiding a deeper, more authentic connection with the person we are with. It is like constantly snacking on junk food, which prevents us from ever feeling a true and healthy appetite for a nourishing meal. The practice of abstaining from idle chatter is the practice of bringing intention to our communication. It is guided by a series of quiet, internal questions we can ask before we speak. Is what I'm about to say true? Is it kind? Is it beneficial to myself and others? Is it necessary? Is this the right time? If the answer to these questions is no, perhaps the most skillful action is to remain silent. This practice makes our words more valuable. When we do speak, it is with purpose and meaning. We learn to appreciate the beauty of a shared, comfortable silence, which is often a sign of much deeper intimacy than a constant stream of chatter. This leads us to the final, and often most powerful, element of loving speech, the eloquence of noble silence. This is not the cold, punishing silence of stonewalling, which is a passive-aggressive act of war. Noble silence is a conscious, loving, and compassionate choice. It is the wisdom to know when words are not needed, or when they would do more harm than good. When we are overwhelmed with anger, noble silence is the kindest choice, protecting both ourselves and the other person from harmful words. When our loved one is in the depths of a powerful emotion, our silent, unwavering presence can be far more comforting than any words we could offer. Noble silence is the understanding that true communication happens on many levels, and sometimes the most profound messages of love, support, and presence are conveyed without a single word being spoken. There is an old story of a king who commanded his wise advisors to find him a single sentence that would be appropriate for all times and all situations. He wanted a phrase that would make him feel hopeful when he was in despair, but would also bring him back to reality when he was lost in pride and arrogance. After much contemplation, the advisors returned and presented the king with a simple ring. Engraved on the ring were the words, "This too shall pass." This phrase is a perfect embodiment of loving speech. It is true, it is kind, it is beneficial, as it fosters acceptance and equanimity. It is a few simple words that have the power to change our entire perspective. Our own speech, when guided by mindfulness and a loving heart, can have this same power. It can become a source of comfort, clarity, and healing in our relationships. To master loving speech is the work of a lifetime. It is a daily practice of pausing, listening, and choosing our words with the same care that a poet chooses words for a poem. It is how we translate the peace of our inner sanctuary into the world of our relationships. But speaking, no matter how skillfully, is only one half of communication. To complete the circle, to create a true dialogue of the heart, we must learn to cultivate its inseparable twin, the profound, generous, and healing practice of deep, compassionate listening. We have explored the art of loving speech, the practice of using our words as instruments of kindness and truth. We have learned to become guardians of our own speech, to ensure that what we offer the world is intended to heal and connect. But this is only one half of the great circle of communication. A beautiful song, sung into an empty room, has no one to receive it. For communication to be complete, for it to become a true dialogue of the heart, speaking must be met with its inseparable and sacred counterpart, listening. I am not speaking of the passive act of hearing sounds, but of the deep, active, and courageous practice of compassionate listening. In our modern world, which is so full of noise and distraction, the greatest and rarest gift you can give to another human being is your silent, undivided, and loving attention. Most of the time, we are not truly listening. When another person is speaking, especially if they are sharing a difficulty or a strong opinion, we may appear to be listening, but our minds are often running a furious, silent monologue. We are busy formulating our response, preparing our defense, or looking for a flaw in their logic. We are searching our own memory banks for a similar story to share, waiting for them to take a breath so we can say, "Oh, that reminds me of a time when I..." We are analyzing their problem and already working on a list of solutions and advice to offer. Our mind is a noisy workshop, filled with the sounds of our own ego, our own needs, and our own ideas. There is no quiet, open space to truly receive the other person. This is not listening. It is simply waiting for our turn to speak. Another significant block to true listening is our compulsive need to fix things. When someone we love expresses pain, sadness, anger, fear, it often makes us feel deeply uncomfortable. We want the uncomfortable feeling to go away, so we rush in with solutions. You should try this. Have you thought about that? Don't be sad. Just look on the bright side. While often well-intentioned, this rush to fix can be a subtle form of invalidation. It sends an unspoken message. Your feeling is a problem, and I need you to stop feeling it, so that I can be comfortable again. We are not offering them our presence. We are trying to manage their emotion. True, deep listening requires the courage to set aside our own discomfort, to let go of our need to be the hero with all the answers, and to simply be present with the other person in their reality, without needing it to change. The art of deep, compassionate listening, then, begins with setting a clear and powerful intention. The intention is this: for these next few moments, my only goal is to help this person suffer less. I will listen in a way that allows them to feel heard, seen, and safe. With this intention as our guide, the practice unfolds in 3 dimensions: the body, the mind, and the heart. The practice begins with the body. Our physical posture communicates volumes before we ever say a word. To listen deeply, we turn our body toward the speaker. We put down our phone. We turn away from the computer screen. We make gentle, steady eye contact, not an aggressive stare, but a soft, receptive gaze. We offer them the gift of our physical presence. This posture says, non-verbally, I am here. You have my full attention. You are important to me. Next, we bring our awareness to the mind. The practice for the mind is to cultivate a spacious silence. This means we consciously let go of the need to interrupt, to correct, or to offer advice. We trust the other person to find their own way through their story. We give them the gift of uninterrupted space. This can be challenging. We may need to bite our tongue. We may need to sit on our hands. But by doing so, we create a safe environment for them to explore their own feelings without being derailed by our agenda. The mind also practices non-judgment. We listen to their experience without filtering it through our own labels of right, wrong, good, bad, or crazy. We simply accept their telling of their reality as their truth. In that moment, we are a witness, not a judge. Finally, we listen with the heart. This is the practice of listening with compassion, Karuṇā. We listen not just to the words being spoken, but to the emotions living beneath the words. We listen for the quiver of sadness in a voice, trying to sound strong. We listen for the flicker of fear behind angry words. We listen for the deep longing that may be hidden in a complaint. Listening with the heart means we are not just receiving data, we are connecting to another's humanity. We are offering them the silent embrace of our compassionate awareness, which has the power to soothe and to heal. The late Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh often told a powerful story that illustrates the transformative power of this practice. After the Vietnam War, he led retreats for war veterans, men who were carrying deep, unspoken trauma, anger, and grief. One veteran, in particular, was filled with a silent rage that had poisoned his life for years. He was unable to connect with his wife or children, unable to find peace, trapped in the prison of his own memories. During the retreat, another participant was instructed to simply sit with this veteran and practice compassionate listening. The instructions were simple: do not speak, do not give advice, do not share your own experiences. Just sit, breathe, and listen with your entire being, with the sole intention of helping this man to suffer less. For a long time, the veteran was silent. Then, slowly, he began to speak. He spoke of the horrors he had witnessed, the things he had done, the friends he had lost. As he spoke, his voice grew louder, filled with the rage he had suppressed for so long. The listener did not flinch. He just sat and breathed and listened. After hours of speaking and shouting, something broke open in the veteran. His face softened, his body began to tremble, and he began to weep. Great, heaving sobs, the tears he had been unable to cry for over 20 years. He cried for his lost innocence, for his friends, for the pain he had caused, and the pain he had endured. And the listener just sat with him, offering the silent, steady presence of his compassion until the storm had passed. In the days that followed, the veteran was a changed man. He was softer, calmer, able to smile for the first time in years. The act of being truly heard, without judgment or interruption, had been a key that unlocked his prison of grief. The listener, with his profound silence, had offered the most powerful medicine imaginable. This is the power that lies within each of us. We all have the capacity to offer this incredible gift to those we love. Deep listening is a practice of generosity, of courage, and of profound love. It costs nothing, yet it is a priceless treasure. It heals the speaker, but it also transforms the listener, deepening our capacity for compassion and connecting us to the shared heart of humanity. When we combine the art of loving speech with the practice of deep listening, we create a powerful current of mindful communication that can cleanse, heal, and nourish our relationships. It is the practical, day-to-day application of a loving and awakened heart. It is the primary tool we have for maintaining harmony and navigating the inevitable difficulties of life together. But what happens when the harm is not fresh? When a wound has already been inflicted and has been allowed to fester over time? What do we do with the old resentments, the lingering bitterness, the memory of betrayals? For this, we need a different, and perhaps even more courageous, kind of heart medicine. We must now turn our attention to the challenging and profoundly liberating path of forgiveness. We have learned to communicate with the skill of loving speech and the grace of deep listening. These are the beautiful, daily practices that maintain the harmony of our relational home, like sweeping the floors and letting in the fresh air. They are the tools we use to navigate the present moment with kindness and clarity. But what about the ghosts of the past? What about the old rooms in our heart that are locked and shuttered? Rooms that hold the memories of deep hurt, betrayal, and injustice. In every long-term relationship and in every life, there are wounds. And when these wounds are not tended to, they fester, they harden into resentment, bitterness, and a silent, heavy grudge that can poison our present happiness and block the flow of love. To truly live with a free and open heart, we must learn how to go into these old, dark rooms, not with fear, but with the light of compassion. We must learn the courageous and profoundly liberating art of forgiveness. Let us begin by being very clear about what forgiveness is, and more importantly, what it is not. The first and most vital truth to understand is this: forgiveness is not something you do for the other person. It is a gift you give to yourself. When we refuse to forgive, we imagine that we are punishing the person who hurt us. We believe that our anger and our resentment are weapons we are aiming at them. But in reality, we are the ones who are suffering. The great spiritual masters use a powerful image for this. Holding onto anger is like grasping a burning piece of coal with the intention of throwing it at someone. You are the one who is being seared by the heat, right here and now. The person who hurt you may be living their life, completely unaware of the fire you are holding, but you feel its burn every single day. This inner fire of unforgiveness is a poison with many effects. It keeps us tethered to the past, forcing us to mentally relive a painful event over and over again, allowing ourselves to be victimized repeatedly by a memory. It floods our bodies with the chronic stress hormones of cortisol and adrenaline, which can have devastating effects on our physical health over time. It sours our perception of the world, making us cynical, defensive, and untrusting. It consumes an enormous amount of our precious life energy that could be used for creativity, for joy, for connection, but is instead being used to fuel the flames of an old grievance. Forgiveness is the decision to put down the hot coal. It is the choice to stop drinking the poison. It is the moment we decide that our own peace of mind is more valuable than our attachment to being right or our desire for revenge. It is the ultimate act of self-care and self-liberation. Because this practice is so powerful and so often misunderstood, it is essential to clear away the myths that prevent us from engaging with it. The first and most common myth is that forgiveness means condoning or excusing the harmful behavior. This is absolutely not true. You can forgive someone completely while still holding the clear understanding that what they did was wrong, harmful, and unacceptable. Forgiveness is an internal process of letting go of your own emotional burden. Holding someone accountable for their actions is an external process. They are not mutually exclusive. You can forgive a person who stole from you for your own peace, while still believing they should face legal consequences. You can forgive a partner for a betrayal of trust, while also making it clear that such behavior is not acceptable in the relationship going forward. Do not let the false idea that forgiveness equals permission stop you from freeing yourself. The second myth is that forgiveness means you must forget what happened. This is not how the mind or memory works. A deep wound will likely leave a scar. The goal of forgiveness is not to induce amnesia. The goal is to change the emotional quality of the memory before forgiveness. When you touch the memory, it is a raw, open wound that causes a fresh jolt of pain. After forgiveness, the memory may still be there, but it becomes a scar. A scar is a sign that healing has happened. You can touch it, you can acknowledge it was there, but it no longer has the power to cause you acute suffering. It has been integrated into your story, but it no longer defines your present emotional state. The third myth is that forgiveness requires reconciliation. While forgiveness can certainly create the conditions that make reconciliation possible, the two are separate processes. You can forgive someone in the quiet of your own heart and choose never to see or speak to them again. This is particularly important in situations involving abuse or repeated harm. The priority is your own safety and well-being. Forgiveness is about finding peace in your inner world, regardless of whether the other person is sorry or whether the relationship is restored. You can wish them well from a very safe distance. Finally, there is the myth that forgiveness is a sign of weakness, that it is letting the other person win. In truth, the opposite is the case. Holding a grudge is easy. It is a passive state of allowing a past event to control your present. To consciously choose to forgive, especially when the hurt is deep, is an act of incredible emotional courage, strength, and sovereignty. It is you taking back the power over your own inner life. It is the strong and clear declaration, I will no longer allow your past actions to dictate my present peace. The path of forgiveness is not a single event, but a process, and it can be gently guided by a few mindful steps. The first step is to fully acknowledge your pain. You cannot heal a wound by pretending it doesn't exist. This step requires you to turn toward your own hurt with the quality of compassion, Karuṇā, that we have been cultivating. You give yourself permission to feel the anger, the sadness, the grief, the sense of injustice, without judgment. You can say to yourself, I acknowledge how deeply I was hurt by this. This pain is real, and it is valid. I will hold my own pain with tenderness. The second step is to practice deep looking, to try and understand the suffering of the person who hurt you. This is not to make excuses for them, but to help depersonalize the injury. As we have seen, people who cause harm are almost always acting from their own place of great suffering or deep ignorance. Try to see the fear, the insecurity, the woundedness that may have motivated their actions by seeing them as a complex, suffering human being rather than a two-dimensional villain. The grip of your personal anger can begin to soften. It moves from a personal attack to a tragic manifestation of the human condition. The third step is the conscious choice to let go. After honoring your own pain and gaining some perspective on theirs, you can now make an intentional decision. You can say, silently or aloud, I have carried this burden of anger for long enough. For the sake of my own peace and freedom, I choose to release it. I release you from the prison of my resentment. I set myself free. This is the moment of dropping the hot coal. It may not feel dramatic. It may be a quiet, subtle shift, but it is a profound turning point. And the fourth, and often most difficult step, is to forgive yourself. We may need to forgive ourselves for our own part in a conflict, for hurtful things we said or did. We may need to forgive ourselves for not being stronger or for trusting someone who then betrayed us. And we often need to forgive ourselves for holding on to anger for so long. We can offer the same phrases of loving kindness to ourselves. I forgive myself for any harm I have caused, knowingly or unknowingly. I forgive myself for holding on to this pain. I am worthy of peace. There is a classic Zen story that perfectly captures the essence of this practice. Two monks, one senior and one junior, were on a long journey. Their vows as monks forbade them from touching women. They came to a river with a strong current, where a beautiful young woman stood, afraid to cross. Without hesitation, the senior monk walked over, lifted the woman onto his shoulders, carried her across the turbulent water, and gently set her down on the other side. He then continued on his way. The junior monk was speechless with shock and outrage. For the next several hours, he walked behind his senior, fuming in silence, his mind replaying the scene over and over. He could not believe that his master, a man he so respected, had so blatantly broken their sacred vows. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, he burst out, "Brother, how could you do that? You know we are forbidden to touch a woman, yet you picked her up and carried her in your arms." The senior monk stopped, looked at his young companion with a calm and gentle gaze, and replied softly, "Brother, I left that woman by the riverbank hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This story asks each of us a profound question. What are the old hurts, the past injustices, the grudges that we are still carrying long after the event has passed? We all have a choice. We can continue to carry these heavy burdens in our minds, allowing them to weigh us down and poison our journey. Or we can make the brave and liberating choice to set them down on the riverbank and walk on with a light and free heart. This is the promise of forgiveness. It is the practice of untying the knots of the past, so that we can be fully alive and present to the beauty of our life right now. It prepares the ground for true and lasting reconciliation, not just with others, but with our own life story. Having equipped ourselves with the tools of loving speech, deep listening, and the healing balm of forgiveness, we have built a robust emotional first aid kit for our relationships. We know how to speak with kindness, how to listen with compassion, and how to untie the knots of past hurts. These are the practices that help us repair the structure of our relational home when damage has been done. Now, we must turn our attention to one of the most inevitable and potentially most destructive forces in any intimate relationship: the fire of conflict. In our conventional view, conflict is seen as a battle. It is a sign that something is wrong, a contest of wills where there must be a winner and a loser. We armor ourselves with arguments, we sharpen our words like swords, and we enter the fray with the goal of proving our point and defending our territory. This approach almost always leads to further damage. Feelings are hurt, walls are built, and the sense of loving connection is lost, even if one person wins the argument. But the path of mindful love invites us to see conflict in a radically different light. It invites us to see conflict not as a battle to be won, but as a storm to be navigated or a fire to be tended. It is an opportunity, a painful but precious chance to understand our partner and ourselves more deeply, and to ultimately build a more resilient and honest intimacy. The question is not how to avoid conflict, but how to meet it with wisdom, so that it becomes a force for purification, not destruction. The first and most crucial principle of mindful conflict resolution is this: when the fire of anger is burning, do not act, do not speak. The first responsibility is to tend to your own fire. Anger is a powerful, combustible energy. When it flares up within us, our vision becomes narrow, our hearing becomes selective, and our capacity for reason is severely diminished. To speak from a place of intense anger is like throwing gasoline on a fire. The words that come out will almost certainly be harsh, blaming, and divisive, and they will only escalate the conflict and cause deep wounds. The practice, in this moment, is to immediately turn inward. It is to recognize the presence of the fire without judgment. You can say to yourself, the energy of anger is here. It is strong. This simple recognition is an act of mindfulness. Then, you stop. You make a vow not to speak or send that angry text message. Your first job is not to resolve the external conflict, but to care for the internal one. You return to your breath as an anchor. Breathing in, I know that anger is in me. Breathing out, I am taking care of my anger. The Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh teaches us to embrace our anger like a mother embracing her crying baby. A good mother does not get angry at her crying child. She picks the child up, holds it tenderly, and tries to understand what is causing its distress. Is the baby hungry? Is it cold? Is it in pain? In the same way, we must hold our own anger with mindfulness and compassion. We embrace the fiery energy without letting it control us. We simply breathe with it, hold it, and allow its intensity to naturally subside. This is not suppression, it is loving self-care. It is the most compassionate first step you can take for both yourself and your relationship. Once you have tended to your own fire and its flames have begun to die down, the second principle is to make an appointment for peace. It is a great wisdom to recognize that the moment of intense conflict is almost never the right moment for resolution. It is like trying to have a calm, rational discussion in the middle of a hurricane. The practice is to declare a loving truce. One person can say something like this: "I can feel that we are both very upset right now. I love you very much, and I truly want to understand your perspective and resolve this with you, but I am too angry to speak skillfully at this moment. For the sake of our love, can we please take a break and make an appointment to talk in an hour, or after we take a walk, when we are both calmer?" This simple act is incredibly powerful. It immediately diffuses the crisis. It communicates that your commitment to the relationship is more important than your need to win the argument. It honors both your own feelings and the feelings of your partner, acknowledging that neither of you is in a state to communicate effectively. This skillful pause is the act of bringing the cooling water of wisdom to the fire of conflict. It creates a safe space, a container in which a difficult conversation can later happen with a much greater chance of success. During this break, both partners can continue to practice mindful breathing, walking meditation, or simply reflecting on their own part in the conflict, so that when they come back together, they are not coming as two armed soldiers, but as two partners with a shared intention for peace. The third principle concerns the reconciliation dialogue itself, the peace appointment. When the agreed-upon time arrives, you can create a sacred space for the conversation. Sit down together, perhaps with a cup of tea. Put away all distractions. At the beginning of the talk, you might practice the parable of the mindfulness bell. One person can have a small bell, or even an app on their phone that makes a gentle bell sound. You can agree that any time the conversation becomes heated, either person can invite the bell to sound. When it rings, both of you agree to stop talking immediately and take 3 slow, conscious breaths together. This simple practice is a powerful tool for repeatedly bringing you back to a place of calm and presence when emotions start to escalate. The dialogue itself is a direct application of the skills we have already cultivated. The fundamental rule is that one person speaks at a time, and while they are speaking, the other's only job is to practice deep, compassionate listening. The person speaking makes a vow to use loving speech, using I statements to share their own suffering without blame or accusation. Instead of "you made me feel," they say, "When this happened, the story I told myself was, and I felt." They are taking responsibility for their own feelings, while honestly sharing their experience. The listener's job is not to defend, rebut, or interrupt. Their job is simply to listen with the intention of understanding, to listen so deeply that they can almost feel what it was like to be the other person in that moment. After the first person has finished and feels fully heard, they switch roles. The listener now has a chance to speak from their own experience, and the first speaker now practices the art of deep listening. The goal of this dialogue is not to determine who was right and who was wrong. The facts of a situation are often perceived very differently by two people. The goal is much deeper. The goal is for each person to feel that their inner world, their suffering, and their perspective have been truly heard and understood by the other. This feeling of being understood is what heals the rift. It is what restores the feeling of connection and safety. In a mindful conflict, there is no winner and no loser. The only victory is the restoration of harmony and love. The relationship wins. By approaching conflict in this way, as a process of tending to our inner fire making a wise appointment for peace, and engaging in a dialogue of deep listening and loving speech, we transform one of the most painful aspects of relationships into one of the most profound opportunities for growth. Each conflict, navigated with mindfulness, becomes a lesson in love. It teaches us about our own triggers. It reveals the hidden suffering in our partner, and it deepens our trust in the resilience of our connection. It makes our love not more fragile, but more strong, more flexible, and more real. These practices for mindful communication and reconciliation are the tools we use to navigate the significant emotional weather of our lives together. But the deepest roots of a loving relationship are often nourished, not in the dramatic moments of conflict or forgiveness, but in the countless small, quiet, and seemingly mundane moments that make up our daily lives. How do we bring this same quality of presence and care to the simple act of sharing a meal, or walking down the street, or washing the dishes? How do we find love, not just in the grand gestures, but in a simple cup of tea? Having learned to navigate the great oceans of our relational life, the storms of conflict, the deep currents of forgiveness, the vast horizons of compassion, we now return to the shore. We return to the simple, solid ground of our daily existence. For while love is tested and revealed in the dramatic moments, it is built and sustained in the ordinary ones. A life of love is not a series of grand gestures. It is the sum of countless small, quiet, and often unnoticed moments. The great illusion is that our spiritual practice, our practice of love, is something separate from our daily life, something we do only when we are sitting on a meditation cushion or wrestling with a major problem. The profound truth of the Zen path is that our daily life is our practice. The kitchen sink can be a place of enlightenment. A simple walk can be a pilgrimage, and a humble cup of tea can hold the entire universe of our love. Let us consider this cup of tea. It is such a simple, everyday thing, but let us imagine preparing it, not as a mindless habit, but as a meditation, an offering of love. The practice begins with our attention. We listen to the sound of the water filling the kettle. We feel the cool metal in our hands. As we wait for the water to boil, we don't pick up our phone or let our mind race ahead to the next task. We simply wait. We stand and we breathe. We feel the ground beneath our feet. We are fully present for this moment of preparing. Then, we hear the water begin to rumble, its song growing until it reaches a boil. We watch the steam rise, a cloud in our own kitchen. We pour the hot water over the tea leaves, watching them unfurl and dance, releasing their color and their fragrance into the water. We are witnessing a beautiful transformation, and we are paying attention. We let the tea steep, not with impatience, but with quiet anticipation. Then, we pour it into a cup. Perhaps it is a special cup that our partner loves. We hold the warm cup in our hands, feeling its heat seep into our palms. We bring it to our partner. In this moment, what are we offering? We are not just offering a hot beverage. We are offering our presence. We are offering the 15 minutes of our full, undivided, mindful attention that went into its creation. The love is not in the liquid, it is in the quality of awareness that we brought to the act. When we sit with our partner and drink this tea, we do so with the same mindfulness. We feel its warmth, we smell its aroma, we taste its subtle flavors. We are not talking about the problems of yesterday or the worries of tomorrow. For these few moments, we are simply here, together, sharing this cup of tea. This simple, ordinary act, when infused with mindfulness, becomes a profound ritual of connection, a silent expression of "I am here with you, and I care for you. Now let us take this same spirit into the kitchen and stand before a sink full of dirty dishes. For most of us, this is a chore. It is something to be rushed through. Our minds a million miles away, complaining about the task, thinking only of when it will be finished. But what if we were to wash these dishes as if it were the most important thing in the world? What if we saw it as another opportunity to practice love? We turn on the warm water and feel it on our hands. We pick up a single plate, the plate that held the food, that nourished the body of someone we love. As we wash it, we are fully with the experience. We feel the smooth, soapy sponge. We see the food dissolve and the clean, bright surface of the plate emerge. We can synchronize our breath with our actions. Breathing in, I am washing this plate. Breathing out, I am grateful for this plate and for the meal we shared. By bringing this awareness to the task, we transform it. It ceases to be a resentful chore and becomes a quiet act of service. We are not just cleaning an object, we are caring for our home. We are tending to the well-being of our family. We are washing the very dishes that will hold the food, that will become part of the bodies of the people we cherish. This is a humble, hidden, and powerful act of love. There is no applause, no recognition. There is only the simple, peaceful satisfaction of bringing care and attention to a necessary task. To do this for our family is a deep expression of love that requires no words. This same principle can be applied to shared activities, like taking a walk together. So often when we walk, we are not really there. We are walking to get somewhere. Our bodies are moving, but our minds are lost in thought, or we are both on our phones, physically together, but mentally in different worlds. A mindful walk is different. We make an agreement to be present together. We might even begin by taking a few moments to stand in silence, just feeling the air and noticing the world around us. As we walk, we bring our attention to the physical sensations, the feeling of our feet on the pavement or the earth, the rhythm of our own breathing, and perhaps even the rhythm of our partner's breathing. We notice the world around us with the fresh eyes of a child, the color of a flower, the shape of a cloud, the sound of birdsong. You may choose to walk in a comfortable silence, sharing the experience without the need to narrate it. This is not an awkward, empty silence. It is a full, rich silence, pregnant with shared presence. You are walking this path of life together in this very moment, and you are both awake to it. This kind of shared, silent presence can create a feeling of intimacy that is deeper and more profound than many conversations. It is a communion of being. You are not just two people walking. You are two streams of awareness flowing alongside each other, witnessing the world together. This is the secret that the great Zen masters knew. A student once asked his master, "What is enlightenment? What is the great practice?" The master replied simply, "When I am hungry, I eat. When I am tired, I sleep." The student was confused. "But master," he said, "isn't that what everybody does?" "No," the master replied. "When most people eat, they are not really eating. They are thinking of 100 different things. Their minds are lost in worry and planning. When most people sleep, they are not truly sleeping. They are dreaming 1,000 restless dreams. But when I eat, I just eat. When I sleep, I just sleep." To bring this wisdom to our love is to understand that the greatest gift we can ever give our partner is our true presence. When you are with them, just be with them. When you are listening to them, just listen. When you are drinking tea with them, just drink tea. This is the end of the search for a magical, romantic moment in the future. It is the realization that every single moment, no matter how ordinary, can be infused with the magic of our full attention. This is where love truly lives. It lives in the spaces between the great events. It is nourished by the steady, quiet, and mindful care we bring to the beautiful, simple, and ordinary business of our shared lives. Having learned to infuse our daily lives with the sacred quality of mindful presence, we now expand our view. We have explored our inner world and how to bring its fruits into our daily actions. Now we turn our attention to the relationship itself, not just to you or me, but to the mysterious, living entity that is us. So often, we treat a relationship like a static object, a thing we have acquired, or we see it as a contract, a set of unspoken rules and obligations. But a mindful and loving relationship is neither of these things. It is far more organic, more alive, and more demanding of our care. The most helpful way to understand it is to see the relationship as a shared garden, a living piece of land that has been entrusted to two gardeners, you and your partner. This garden is a third entity. It has its own life, its own needs, its own seasons. It is not your garden, nor is it their garden. It is our garden. Its health and beauty do not depend on the efforts of one person alone. It requires the conscious, collaborative, and continuous care of both gardeners. A beautiful garden does not happen by accident. It is the result of intention, patience, hard work, and love. So too with a beautiful relationship. It is not something we simply find. It is something we must choose to cultivate together, day after day. This shared garden becomes the living expression of your love. Its flourishing is your flourishing. So, how do we become wise and compassionate gardeners for this sacred land we share? The first and most fundamental act of gardening is to prepare the soil. Before you plant a single seed, you must ensure the ground is fertile and life-giving. In the garden of a relationship, the soil is your shared values, your common intentions, and your mutual agreements. It is the conscious work of sitting down together and asking the important questions. What kind of garden do we truly want to grow here? Do we want a garden that is wild and passionate, or one that is peaceful and serene? Do we want it to be open for many others to enjoy, or a private sanctuary just for us? What is our shared vision for what this love can be? Preparing the soil means agreeing on the fundamental principles of your life together. This is where you establish your commitments to mindful communication. You can agree, for example, on the principles of loving speech and deep listening. You can create a shared understanding of how you will handle conflict, agreeing to the practice of making an appointment for peace when anger arises. This is like enriching the soil with the compost of wisdom. You are consciously creating a foundation of trust, respect, and mutual understanding. A relationship that begins without this foundational work is like trying to plant flowers in dry, rocky ground. The seeds may sprout, but they will struggle to thrive. By taking the time to prepare the soil together, you are giving your love the very best chance to grow deep roots and become strong and resilient. Once the soil is prepared, the gardeners can begin to plant seeds. These are the conscious acts of creation that bring new life and energy into the relationship. Planting a seed could be a large, life-changing decision, like deciding to create a family, to move to a new city, or to start a business together. But it can also be a series of smaller, yet equally important, intentions. You might decide to plant the seed of a mindfulness day, one day each month, where you agree to turn off all screens and simply be present with each other, perhaps practicing meditation, taking a mindful walk, or cooking a meal together in silence. You might plant the seed of a shared creative project, or a new hobby you can learn together. These acts of conscious creation are what keep the garden vibrant and dynamic. They ensure that the relationship is not stagnating, but is always in a state of becoming, with new life and new possibilities always emerging. Of course, a garden, no matter how well prepared its soil or how beautiful its seeds, cannot survive without water. The daily watering of the garden is the practice of loving kindness, Maitrī, made manifest. A garden does not thrive on a single, torrential downpour once a year. It thrives on the steady, gentle, and reliable rain of daily nourishment. This watering comes in the form of small, consistent acts of care. It is the good morning kiss. It is the word of appreciation for a task they have done. It is the text message in the middle of the day that simply says, "I am thinking of you." It is the act of bringing them a cup of tea without being asked. It is the offering of a listening ear after a long day. These are the small, humble drops of water that keep the soil of the relationship moist and the roots of your love well nourished. Without this consistent watering, even the most promising garden will wither and dry out. As any gardener knows, along with beautiful flowers, weeds will inevitably sprout. In the garden of a relationship, the weeds are the small misunderstandings, the unspoken resentments, the minor irritations, and the old grievances that arise naturally. If these weeds are left untended, they will quietly multiply, stealing the nutrients and the sunlight from the plants you want to grow, until eventually they can choke the life out of the entire garden. The practice of weeding, therefore, is essential. This is the active and courageous practice of mindful conflict resolution. It is the commitment from both gardeners to regularly scan the garden for these weeds and to deal with them while they are still small and their roots are shallow. It means having the courage to say, "I think a small weed of misunderstanding has sprouted between us. Can we talk about it?" It is the willingness to gently pull out these resentments with the tools of loving speech and deep listening before they have a chance to grow into a thorny thicket of bitterness. Finally, a wise gardener understands the art of pruning. Sometimes, for a plant to grow healthier and produce more beautiful flowers, certain branches must be cut away. This can be a painful process, but it is necessary for new growth. In a relationship, pruning is the practice of letting go of what no longer serves the health of the garden. This could mean pruning away old habits or patterns of interaction that are causing harm. It might mean letting go of outdated roles or expectations of each other. As we grow and change as individuals, the relationship must also be allowed to change its shape. The love you share at 50 cannot be the same as the love you shared at 20. To insist that it remain the same is to deny it the ability to grow. Pruning requires trust and wisdom, the ability to discern what must be cut away so that the life force of the relationship can be directed toward a more vibrant and healthy future. In all of this gardening, there is one final, crucial element that is often overlooked: the need for space. There is a beautiful parable that speaks to this. Imagine two magnificent trees growing in a large field. If they are planted too close together, their existence becomes a struggle. Their roots become tangled in a desperate competition for the same water and nutrients in the soil. Their branches overlap and intertwine, fighting each other for access to the precious light of the sun. Neither tree can ever reach its full majestic potential. They are crowded, enmeshed, and their growth is stunted. This is the image of a codependent love, a love with no space for individuality. Now imagine the same two trees planted too far apart, at opposite ends of the field. They are isolated. They cannot feel the presence of the other. On a stormy day, they have no one to help break the force of the wind. On a hot day, they cannot offer each other any shade. They are safe, but they are alone. But now, imagine them planted at just the right distance. Each tree has its own ground, allowing its roots to go deep and draw its own unique nourishment. Each tree has the space to grow its branches wide and tall, reaching for the sun in its own way, expressing its own unique form. Yet, they are close enough to feel each other's presence. Their branches may even touch gently in the breeze. Together, they create a beautiful, sacred space in the field, a place of shared shelter and beauty. This is the image of a healthy, mindful love. It is a love that understands that true intimacy requires not only closeness, but also space. It is respecting your partner's need for solitude, for their own friends, their own passions, and their own spiritual journey. This individual growth is not a threat to the relationship. It is the very thing that allows each person to become stronger, more whole, and thus have more to offer the shared garden. To see your relationship as a living garden is to transform it from a source of obligation or anxiety into a beautiful, creative, and sacred practice. It is a commitment you make together to be the most patient, wise, and loving gardeners you can be. It is the understanding that a great love is not found, but is grown, one mindful, caring act at a time. We have been learning to be wise gardeners of our shared relational space, understanding the need for mutual care, for watering, weeding, and pruning. But we also discovered one of the most vital and often overlooked elements of a healthy garden: the need for space. The wisdom that two trees must have their own ground to grow strong brings us face to face with a profound and often uncomfortable truth. The space between us, the moments of separateness, can bring us into direct contact with one of the deepest fears known to the human heart: the fear of being alone. For many of us, this fear is the ghost that haunts our lives, the silent, driving force behind our most desperate pursuits of love and connection. To build a love that is truly free and not a reaction to fear, we must now have the courage to turn and face this ghost. We must learn the art of resting peacefully in our own aloneness. It is essential, first, to make a clear distinction between two words that we often use interchangeably: loneliness and solitude. They may look the same from the outside, a person alone in a room, but their inner quality is worlds apart. Loneliness is the pain of absence. It is the feeling that something is missing. It is an ache, a void, a state of inner poverty. When we are lonely, we feel cut off, incomplete, and our mind desperately scans the horizon for someone, anyone, to come and fill that empty space. Loneliness is a state of lack. It is a form of suffering. Solitude, on the other hand, is the joy of presence. It is the experience of being alone, but not feeling a lack. It is the simple, peaceful, and contented state of being with oneself. Solitude is not empty. It is full. It is full of your own presence, your own breath, your own being. It is a state of inner richness and sufficiency. While loneliness is a prison, solitude is a sanctuary. It is a precious and necessary space for healing, for rest, and for reconnection with our deepest self. In the quiet of solitude, we can finally hear our own inner voice, a voice that is so often drowned out by the noise of the world and the demands of others. It is in solitude that we can process our grief, untangle our thoughts, discover our creativity, and simply be, without the need to perform or to please anyone. Our fear of loneliness is ancient and deeply wired. For our distant ancestors, to be alone was to be vulnerable. To be separated from the tribe was a death sentence. In modern times, This physical fear has transformed into a psychological one. We fear that if we are alone, it means we are unseen, unloved, unwanted, and therefore worthless. It feels like a kind of social and emotional death to the ego, and so we run from it. We fill our lives with noise, with endless distractions, with frantic activity, and most powerfully, we use relationships as a primary anesthetic against the pain of loneliness. We search for a partner not just out of love, but out of a desperate need to not be alone with ourselves. We ask another human being to take on the impossible job of being our constant distraction, our 24-hour entertainment, the savior who will rescue us from the terrifying prospect of our own company. This places an unbearable burden on the relationship. It means that we can never truly relax, because we are always subtly monitoring our partner, needing their presence to keep our own inner ghosts at bay. This is not freedom. This is a form of bondage. The path to a free and fearless love, therefore, involves the courageous practice of befriending our own solitude. It is the practice of intentionally setting aside time to be alone, not as a punishment, but as an act of loving self-care. It is learning to become your own best friend. Can you take yourself for a walk and enjoy your own company? Can you sit in a cafe with just a cup of tea and your own thoughts without immediately reaching for your phone? Can you find joy in your own hobbies, your own interests, your own inner world? The practice is to turn the gentle, compassionate attention that we have been cultivating for others back onto ourselves. It is to be interested in our own experience, to listen to our own feelings, and to find a sense of peace and wholeness in our own presence. There is a beautiful image for this state of being: the full moon in the night sky. The moon often travels its path alone. It does not have a companion star holding its hand. It moves through the vast, silent emptiness of space in a state of perfect solitude. And yet, is the moon lonely? Or is it radiant, complete, and whole in its own being? The moon does not feel a lack. It simply is. And from this place of magnificent, solitary completeness, it fulfills its function perfectly. It generously reflects the light of the hidden sun and pours its soft, silver light down upon the world, illuminating the darkness, guiding the traveler, and inspiring the poet. It shares its light not out of a desperate need to be seen, but out of the simple fullness of its own nature. We can learn to be like the moon. We can learn to be at peace in our own solitary orbit, to find a source of inner light and wholeness that does not depend on another person. When we achieve this, a miraculous transformation occurs in our relationships. The energy of our love shifts completely. When you are no longer terrified of being alone, you stop clinging. You stop being possessive. You stop making unreasonable demands on your partner to be your everything. You release them from the impossible job of saving you from yourself. Your love ceases to be a contract of mutual neediness and becomes a free and joyous offering. You choose to be with your partner not because you can't live without them, but because you delight in sharing your life with them. The relationship is no longer a cure for loneliness, but a beautiful space where two people who are already at peace with their own solitude can come together to share that peace. This creates a love that is spacious, trusting, and deeply respectful. When your partner needs their own time, their own space to pursue their passions, or to simply be with themselves, you do not feel threatened or abandoned. You understand, because you value your own solitude as well. You can genuinely wish them well on their own journey, knowing that your own wholeness is not at stake. This is a love between two strong trees, each with their own deep roots, whose branches can reach for the sky without entangling each other, yet whose presence offers mutual shade and shelter. To be at home with yourself is the key to being truly at home with another. When you have made friends with your own aloneness, you bring a gift of immense peace and stability to your relationships. You are no longer coming to the relationship with an empty cup, begging to be filled. You are coming with a cup that is already overflowing with the contentment you have found in your own being, and you are delighted to share that abundance. This newfound inner completeness has another wonderful and natural consequence. A love that is not born from a place of desperate need is no longer confined by that need. When you are not looking to one single person to be the sole source of your validation and your cure for loneliness, your heart has an incredible capacity to open even wider. The love and compassion you have cultivated can now flow more freely, expanding beyond the romantic partnership to embrace your friends, your family, your community, and in time, all living beings. Your heart, now at peace with its own company, is free to love the whole world. Having learned to find peace in our own solitude, we arrive at a place of profound inner strength and contentment. Our heart is no longer a beggar's cup, held out in desperate need of another's affection. It is a full and overflowing spring, nourished from within. A love that is born from this kind of fullness, this inner freedom, has a remarkable quality. It cannot be contained. A love that is not driven by need has no reason to be exclusive. It naturally seeks to expand, to radiate, to dissolve the artificial boundaries that we have built around our hearts. The journey of love does not end with finding peace for ourselves, or even with building a beautiful partnership. The ultimate expression of an awakened heart is a love that knows no borders, a compassion that embraces all of life without exception. The very name that the Buddhist tradition gives to the four great qualities we have been cultivating: loving, kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity points to this truth. They are called the Brahma Viharas, which translates as the divine abodes, or the immeasurable states. They are called immeasurable, precisely because, in their purest form, they cannot be measured, limited, or confined to one person or one group. They are, by their very nature, boundless. The practice, then, is to consciously and intentionally train our hearts to love in this limitless way. This training can take the form of a beautiful and systematic meditation. We begin, as always, by generating the feeling of loving kindness for ourselves, filling our own cup until it is overflowing. Then, we extend that feeling to a beloved one, letting our warmth radiate to them. Here, the practice traditionally expands. After our loved one, we bring to mind a neutral person. This could be someone we see regularly, but have no strong feelings for: the cashier at the grocery store, the person who delivers our mail, a neighbor we pass on the street. We hold their image in our mind, and we offer them the exact same wishes we offered our loved one. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. In doing this, we are challenging the heart's habit of indifference. We are recognizing the humanity of this neutral person and actively wishing for their well-being. We are dissolving the wall of separateness. Next, with our hearts softened and expanded, we bravely bring to mind a difficult person, someone with whom we have conflict. As we have practiced before, we try to see the suffering behind their actions, and we extend to them the wish to be free from that suffering. And then comes the great act of integration. We try to hold all four people in our heart's awareness at once: ourselves, our loved one, the neutral person, and the difficult person. And we offer the wish for happiness and freedom to all four, equally, without preference or discrimination. This is a powerful practice for cultivating equanimity, for training the heart to love beyond its habitual patterns of like, dislike, and don't care. Finally, from this place of boundless equanimity, we allow our love to radiate outwards in all directions. We imagine our heart as a sun, sending its rays of loving kindness and compassion forward, backward, to the left, to the right, above, and below. We send this energy to all beings in our town, our country, and throughout the world. We extend it to all animals, the creatures in the sky, on the land, and in the sea. We extend it to all of life, in all its forms. We end the meditation with the simple, all-encompassing wish. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be free from suffering. This is the practice of a truly borderless love. This formal meditation then becomes the blueprint for our daily life. The world becomes our meditation hall. As we walk through our day, we can practice seeing our loved one in every face. We see the stranger on the bus, and instead of ignoring them, we can look at them with the eyes of interbeing, recognizing our profound connection. They breathe the same air. The sun warms their skin as it warms ours. Their hearts hold the same fundamental wishes for safety and happiness as our own. We can silently offer them a wish for their well-being. We see a person who is homeless, and instead of looking away in discomfort, we can look with the eyes of compassion, acknowledging their suffering and wishing for them to be free from it. We see a child laughing, and we can practice sympathetic joy, allowing their pure delight to bring a smile to our own face. Every encounter becomes an opportunity to dissolve the illusion of separation and to strengthen our connection to the great family of all beings. A heart that is this open cannot help but be moved to action. True compassion is not a passive state. It naturally gives rise to engaged love. When we truly feel our connection to the suffering of others, we are moved to help alleviate it. The practice of love in action can take many forms. It can be volunteering at a local soup kitchen, donating to a cause that helps those in need, or simply helping an elderly neighbor with their groceries. These are not just good deeds done out of a sense of duty. They are the natural expression of a compassionate heart. They are the 1,000 hands of the Bodhisattva made manifest in our own community. We are putting our love into practice in the most tangible and helpful ways. This boundless love must also extend to the very ground beneath our feet and the air that fills our lungs. Our love for all beings must include the environment that sustains us all. To care for the planet, reduce our consumption, to protect our forests, to clean our ocean, a profound spiritual practice. It is the ultimate act of compassion, not only for the countless species with whom we share this world, but for all future generations of human beings. It is the recognition that we are not separate from nature, but an intimate part of it. To poison the earth is to poison ourselves. To heal the earth is to heal ourselves. This ecological awareness is the widest possible circle of love we can draw. In the ancient stories of the Buddha's past lives, there is a tale that illustrates the ultimate potential of this borderless, selfless love. In one life, the future Buddha was a prince who, while walking in a forest, came upon a cave where a tigress lay starving. She was so weak from hunger that she was about to do the unthinkable, eat her own newborn cubs to survive. The prince was overcome with an unbearable compassion for both the mother and her young. Seeing no other food available and understanding the impermanent nature of his own body, he made an extraordinary decision. He offered his own body to the tigress, giving his life so that she and her cubs could live. We are not asked to perform such a literal act. This story is a teaching, a powerful pointer to the ideal of a bodhisattva's luva love, so vast and selfless that it sees no separation between its own life and the life of another. It is a love that holds all of life as sacred. It is the complete annihilation of the separate self in the service of boundless compassion. To cultivate this borderless love is to find a source of deep and unshakable joy. It is to walk through the world feeling not like a separate, isolated individual, but like a vital and connected part of a magnificent whole. It is to find family in the face of a stranger and to see our own home in the health of the planet. But this great love, which holds all of life so dearly, must also face the most poignant truth of our world. Everything changes, everything passes. How can a heart that has opened so wide to embrace all of life cope with the inevitable reality of separation and loss? To answer this, we must face the final great challenge of love, the practice of letting go with grace and wisdom. We have journeyed to the furthest reaches of the heart, expanding our love to embrace friends, strangers, enemies, and even the planet itself. Our love has become, in intention, boundless. And now, this vast, open, and loving heart must face its ultimate test. It must face the most profound and inevitable sorrow of our human lives, the truth of separation and loss. To love deeply is to open ourselves to the possibility of deep grief. The two are inseparable. Having learned to hold all of life with such tenderness, how do we learn to say goodbye? How do we let go of the people and things we cherish when the unyielding law of impermanence, anicca, comes to call? This is where our practice moves from a philosophy of life to a lifeline in our darkest hours. The pain of loss is real, and it is sharp. When we lose someone we love, whether through the ending of a relationship or through the finality of death, the initial experience can be one of shattering. The world can feel colorless, meaningless, and unjust. There is a deep, physical ache in the body. It is essential to understand that the path of mindfulness is not about avoiding this pain. It is not a spiritual bypass or a way to pretend that it doesn't hurt. The pain is a testament to the depth of our love. To have loved greatly is to have the capacity to grieve greatly. The practice, therefore, is not to build a wall against the sorrow, but to learn how to meet it, how to hold it, and how to move through it with a heart that remains open and soft, even as it is breaking. It is here that the seeds of wisdom we planted earlier in our journey begin to grow into a great, sheltering tree. The first branch of this tree is our understanding of impermanence. We have already contemplated the truth that all things arise, stay for a while, and then pass away. While this intellectual understanding cannot erase the searing pain of a fresh loss, it can provide a context for our grief. It can prevent our personal sorrow from curdling into a sense of cosmic injustice. When we are not deeply rooted in the understanding of impermanence, loss can feel like a personal attack from the universe, a cruel punishment. We cry out, "Why is this happening to me? It's not fair." But when we have truly absorbed the teaching of anicca, we understand that change and loss are not punishments. They are the fundamental rhythm of existence, as natural as the turning of the seasons. Our personal loss is part of a universal story. This does not make it less sad, but it can make it feel less isolating, less personal, and ultimately, less terrifying. We are not being singled out. We are simply participating in the great, beautiful, and heartbreaking dance of life. The second great branch of our wisdom tree is our understanding of interbeing and no-self, anatta. This is perhaps the most profound medicine the path has to offer in the face of loss. Our conventional view of death or separation is that a person who was here is now gone. We experience it as a complete and total erasure. But the vision of interbeing reveals that this is an illusion. Nothing can ever be completely erased from existence. It can only change its form. When our loved one is no longer in their familiar physical form, our practice is to look deeply for their continuation, both in us and all around us. This is not just a poetic sentiment. It is a deep, contemplative practice. Where can we find our loved one now? We can find them in our own body and mind. Their words, their teachings, their advice continue in the way we make decisions. Their sense of humor continues when we find ourselves using one of their phrases. Their kindness continues when we treat another person with the same tenderness they once showed us. We can look at our hands and see their hands because they fed us, held us, and helped to shape the very person we have become. They are not gone. They are flowing in our bloodstream and breathing with our lungs. We can also see their continuation in the world. The food they cooked for us has become part of the earth. The trees they planted continue to give shade. The projects they worked on continue to benefit others. The love they poured into the world continues to ripple outward in ways we may never even know. The practice is to train our minds to see this continuation. When a memory arises, instead of only feeling the pain of their absence, we can learn to also see the reality of their presence, right here, in a new form. This practice does not eliminate the sadness of missing their physical form, their voice, their touch, but it introduces a new and profound understanding. The person is not gone. The communication has simply shifted to a different channel. Our relationship moves from an external one to a deep, internal, and spiritual one. With this wisdom as our foundation, we can then engage in the active practice of mindful grieving. The first step is to give ourselves unconditional permission to grieve. Our society is often uncomfortable with grief. We are told to be strong, to move on, to keep busy, but this is a form of self-violence. Grief needs to be felt. It needs to be honored. The practice of mindful grieving is to create a safe sanctuary for our own sorrow. We turn the lamp of our compassion, Karuṇā, inward. We become a loving parent to our own grieving heart. When a wave of sadness arises, we don't push it away. We stop. We breathe. We acknowledge it. Sadness is here. This is what grief feels like. We can even place a hand on our heart and hold ourselves with the same tenderness we would offer to a grieving friend. We allow the tears to flow, if they need to flow. We allow the anger, the confusion, the numbness to be present without judgment. We are giving ourselves the gift of being fully human. In the midst of these powerful waves of emotion, the mind can feel lost and overwhelmed. This is when we use the body and the breath as our anchor. When you feel a storm of grief approaching, bring your full attention to the physical sensations of your body. Feel your feet firmly planted on the floor. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. Most importantly, return to the simple, steady rhythm of your breath. Breathing in, breathing out. This will not make the pain disappear, but it can provide a small island of stability in the center of the storm. It keeps us from being completely swept away by the powerful currents of our sorrow. The breath is our loyal friend, always there to bring us back to the present moment, a safe harbor in any emotional tempest. Over time, as we practice holding our grief with this mindful compassion, a subtle alchemy can begin to take place. We can learn to transform the poison of pain into the medicine of gratitude. The practice is this: when a memory of our loved one arises and brings with it the sharp pang of their absence, we first honor that sadness. We allow ourselves to feel the ache of missing them, and then, very gently, we try to touch the other side of that same coin. We can say to ourselves, "I am so deeply sad that you are no longer here, and I am so profoundly grateful that you were here. I am so grateful for the love we shared, for the laughter, for this very memory that now brings me tears." We are not replacing sadness with gratitude. We are learning to hold both at the same time. The sadness honors the loss. The gratitude honors the gift. Gradually, over months and years, the balance can shift. The memories that once brought only pain can begin to bring a gentle warmth, a bittersweet smile, a feeling of deep and abiding thankfulness for the precious time we were given. There is a beautiful teaching that compares this process to the journey of an autumn leaf. A leaf is born in the spring, a tiny, vibrant bud. All summer long, it lives a full life. It dances in the wind, it drinks in the rain, and it soaks up the sunlight, transforming that light into life for the entire tree. In the autumn, its work is done, and it puts on a final, spectacular display of color. Then, when its time comes, it does not cling desperately to the branch. It surrenders, it lets go, and floats gracefully on the wind, returning to the earth. But is this an end? Is this a death? The teaching says no. This is a continuation. The leaf decomposes, becoming part of the rich, dark soil. Its very substance, all the life it gathered, is then drawn back up through the roots of the tree to become the nourishment for the new leaves that will be born the following spring. The leaf is not gone. It has simply returned to the tree in a new form. Our loved ones are like this leaf. Their physical form, like the shape of the leaf, was temporary, but their life, their energy, their love, their teachings, all of this continues. It returns to the great tree of life and continues to nourish us in countless ways. They are in the soil of our being. To learn to face loss with this vision is to find peace in the midst of sorrow. It is to understand that a love that is true can never be lost because it has become a part of us. We have now traveled the full circle of the heart. We began with our own suffering, and we learned to meet it with love. We extended that love to others, to our community, to the world. And now, we have learned to love even in the face of the ultimate separation. So, after this long and profound journey, where do we finally arrive? What is the ultimate destination? The answer is that we arrive right where we are, but we see with new eyes and love with a new heart. We arrive at the final understanding that love is not something we seek or do or even cultivate. It is our very nature. We learn to simply rest in the heart of compassion. We have walked a long and winding path together. We began in the crowded cafe of our own loneliness, feeling the ache of an inner void. We explored the illusions of romantic love that our culture had sold us, and we began the courageous work of looking for love, not on a screen or in the eyes of a stranger, but in the quiet landscape of our own heart. We surveyed the very ground of reality, learning the profound truths of interbeing, no self, and impermanence. On that solid ground, we began to build a new home, a boundless abode of the heart, laying each stone with care, the stone of loving kindness, the stone of compassion, the stone of sympathetic joy, and the great foundation stone of equanimity. We learned to live in this home, to communicate from it with loving speech and deep listening, to cleanse it with forgiveness, to navigate its storms with wisdom, and to find its sacred beauty in the most ordinary moments of our daily lives. We even learned how to love so widely that we could embrace our enemies, and so deeply that we could hold our most profound losses with grace. After all this traveling, all this building, all this practicing, where do we finally arrive? We arrive at the understanding that the journey was not about building something new, but about uncovering something that was always there. We were not building a home. We were simply clearing away the debris and the overgrown vines that had hidden our true home from our own view. The final destination of our path is not a destination at all, but a homecoming. It is the simple, profound, and peaceful state of resting in the heart of our own compassion. It is the realization that love is not a prize to be won, a feeling to be chased, or a practice to be perfected. It is our fundamental nature, It is the very essence of our being. From this place, the great, frantic search for love finally comes to an end. The desperate hunger that drove us from one experience to another, from one person to another, hoping to find the one who would finally make us feel whole, is revealed to be a case of mistaken identity. We were looking for a key, not realizing that the door was never locked. The love that we sought from the outside was, all along, the very lens through which we were meant to see the world. When this is truly understood, deep in our bones, our relationships are transformed. We can finally love, purely and freely. We no longer need a partner to validate our existence, to soothe our insecurities, or to complete us. We approach them, not with an empty cup, but with a full one. Our love becomes a free and joyous gift, an expression of our own inner abundance, not a transaction designed to fill our own inner poverty. Our peace is no longer a fragile thing that we have placed in someone else's hands. It is our own. It is unshakable. To live from this awakened heart means that the four immeasurable states are no longer formal practices we must remember to do. They become our natural way of being in the world. They become our spiritual reflexes. When we meet another being, our heart's spontaneous, default response is Maitrī, a silent wish for their happiness. When we encounter suffering, in ourselves or in others, our heart's reflex is Karuṇā, a compassionate opening, a willingness to be present with the pain without fear. When we witness the good fortune or success of another, our automatic response is Muditā, a genuine, unselfish joy that celebrates their happiness as if it were our own, for we know that we Maitrī. And underlying all of this, our fundamental ground of being becomes Upekṣā, a vast, calm, and spacious peace that can hold all of life's joys and sorrows without being thrown off balance. It is as if we are now looking at the world through a window with four clean, clear panes. The panes of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. Everything we see is filtered through this lens of boundless love. There is a final parable that can help us understand this ultimate state. Imagine the great ocean. On its surface, there is constant activity. There are days when the surface is like glass, with gentle, playful ripples. There are days with large, powerful waves, magnificent and exciting. And there are days of terrifying storms, when the waves are violent, chaotic, and destructive. These waves on the surface are like the emotions and events of our lives: joy, sadness, excitement, anger, peace, grief, success, failure. We spend most of our lives living on this turbulent surface, identifying completely with the waves. When a wave of anger arises, we say, "I am angry." When a wave of sadness appears, we say, "I am sad." We believe that we are the wave, and so we are endlessly tossed and turned, exhausted by the ceaseless motion, always hoping for calm waters and dreading the inevitable storms. The entire spiritual journey we have taken together has been a process of learning how to dive. We have learned to dive beneath the turbulent surface of our thoughts and emotions, down into the great depths of the ocean. And what do we find in those depths? We find a profound stillness. We find a vast, silent, and unshakable peace. Down here, the ocean is completely undisturbed by the storms raging on the surface. It can hold all the activity of the surface in its immense, quiet embrace. This deep, silent, peaceful ocean is our true nature. It is our boundless, compassionate heart. It is the equanimity that can contain all of life's waves. Awakening is not about trying to stop the waves from happening. The waves will always come and go. Awakening is the profound shift in identification. It is the realization that you are not the small, temporary wave on the surface. You are the entire, vast, and eternal ocean. To rest in the heart of compassion is to live from this realization. It is to know yourself as the ocean, and to be able to hold all the waves of your own life and the lives of others with a deep and loving peace. This is the ultimate freedom. It is freedom from the fear of loneliness. For how can the ocean be lonely? It contains everything. It is freedom from clinging to the pleasant waves of joy and success, and freedom from aversion to the unpleasant waves of sorrow and failure. You know that they are all just temporary expressions of your own vast nature. It is freedom from the illusion of a separate, vulnerable self. The small, frightened ego, which was a tiny boat being tossed on the surface, has dissolved back into the water from which it came. Love is no longer a desperate search for another boat to tie onto. Love is the water itself. It is the very substance of our being, the space in which our whole life, and all of life, unfolds. We began our journey together in a place of quiet suffering, with the echo of emptiness in a crowded room, feeling the profound ache of a heart that believed it was separate and incomplete. We looked at the stories our world tells us about love stories of a frantic search, of a missing half, of a prize to be won, and we recognized them as the source of our own deep dissatisfaction. And so, we set out on a different path. We traveled inward, guided by an ancient wisdom. We explored the deep reality of our interconnectedness, seeing the cloud in the paper and the sun in a cup of tea. We touched the liberating truth that our self is not a fixed monument, but a flowing river, and that all of life is a dance of beautiful, heartbreaking impermanence. Upon this new ground of reality, we began to build. We cultivated the 4 boundless qualities of a truly awakened heart: the gentle warmth of loving kindness, the courageous tenderness of compassion, the selfless delight of sympathetic joy, and the unshakable peace of equanimity. We learned to bring these qualities into our lives, transforming our speech, our listening, our conflicts, and even our most mundane daily tasks into practices of love. We found the strength to forgive the past and the grace to face the ultimate sorrow of loss. We have walked a long way, from the illusion of a love that must be found to the reality of a love that can be embodied. And so we arrive at the great secret, the simple and profound truth at the heart of our entire journey. The love you have been seeking is not in another person. It is not in a future achievement or a perfect circumstance. The love you have been seeking is what you are. The peace you have been longing for is not a destination to arrive at, but the very ground of your own being. You are not the small, fragile wave being tossed on the surface of life, hoping for calm seas. You are the entire, vast, silent ocean, capable of holding all the waves of joy and sorrow with a deep and loving peace. True love is not about finding the perfect person to finally make you feel whole. It is about realizing your own wholeness, your own innate completeness, and then sharing that fullness with another as a free and joyous gift. This is not an end. It is a beginning. The purpose of this journey together was not to provide you with a final answer, but to offer you a map and to gently light the lamp in your own hand. The real practice begins now, in the moments of your life. It begins with your very next breath. It begins with the next kind thought you offer to yourself when you make a mistake. It begins with the choice to truly listen to someone you love, without interrupting. It begins with the way you choose to see the stranger on the street. The hearth in your heart has been tended to. The gentle flame of your own awareness and compassion has been lit. Your only task now, and your greatest joy, is to keep it alive with your attention and to let its quiet, steady warmth illuminate your world.